Grand Rising Carrie Bay, Grand Rising IMU. Give everybody a couple more minutes.
Grand Rising LJ Free. Grand Rising everyone.
Grand Rising TMH.
Grand Rising Bone.
Grand Rising LJ Free. So like today we got a very interesting topic.
That's an understatement. Boy, is that an understatement.
Send these last couple of links out real quick. All right, pull this up. Grand Rising, everyone. Today's topic on calling Aboriginal bloodlines is the American Indian Wars. Just something that we thought we'd dive into. Very interesting dates and times on who was fighting and who was allies.
It's definitely something that we needed to take a look at from the standpoint of when we were discussing what was going on with the land grants and the universities and the Civil War. From my perspective, we were looking at it without taking into account that there were relationships that had happened between certain colonies and particular Indians that had been developed at least a good 100 to 200 years before the Civil War started, which definitely would have had a major impact on the outcome of the war. So it's gonna be some good information.
Yes, yes. Let's see, let's start at the top of it. It says American Indian Wars are the numerous armed conflicts between European empires or colonists and later by the American and Canadian settlers or American and Canadian governments and the indigenous peoples of North America. These conflicts occurred across the country, beginning with the Tiguex War in 1540 within present-day New Mexico, and ending across the country and ending with the Renegade period during the Apache Wars in 1924 within the southern West United States.
So wait a minute. You mean to tell me that there were wars still going on in 1924?
1924. But this is the thing that got me. It's at the beginning of it. It's kind of funny. It just started and it stuck out weird. It says American Indian Wars are the numerous armed conflicts between European empires or colonists, and later by the American and Canadian settlers or American and Canadian governments. That's something to mark down as a reminder. It starts in the 16th century. First battle is Battle of Mabila. It's October 1540. Combatants were the Spanish conquistadors against the Mississippian culture. It states the results: death of Chief Tuscaloosa, over 250,000 Indians and 200 Spaniards. And that's 1540. You was gonna add something on? Or say something?
So it sounds like Chief Tuscaloosa is what a city in Mississippi is named after, right?
Yeah, Mississippi, Alabama. Yeah. Tuscaloosa. Next one, it says the Tiguex War. It started in the winter of 1540 and it was over by 1541. It was Spanish conquistadors against Pueblan, Pueblon, Pueblan. And it has nothing down for results. That's 1540 to 1541.
So let's go and look at who was considered in the Battle of Mabila. So let me go ahead and read that quick. I'll go ahead and post this in the back chat so you can
I'm gonna grab it, put it out there for everyone.
Yeah, share it. That's the one thing I didn't pull up, the back chat. Shame on me. I did everything but that. Hold on. But it sounds like that would be Mobile, Alabama.
Yeah. Mobile, Mobile, yeah, sounds like Mobile. Hey, that's where my people's at. No, let me stop. Well, really though, Mobile.
So, what does it say about Mabila? It says the town of Mabila, or Marvilla, or Marvilla, was a small fortress town known to Chief Tuscaloosa in 1540 in a region of present day central Alabama.
That's Mobile, Alabama.
The exact location has been debated for centuries. It's been debated by centuries for by who? But
But
anyway,
oh,
but southwest of present day Selma, Alabama, is one possibility. Marbella was a Trojan horse constructed as a fake village, concealed more than 2,500 native warriors who had been gathered in 1540 by their chief to attack a large part of invaders in the Muskogee Territory. Spanish explorer Hernando de Soto and his expedition. So wait a minute. Did you see that?
I'm scratching.
It said Mabila or Mabilla was a Trojan horse constructed as a fake village, concealed more than 2,500 native warriors who had been gathered in 1540 by then chief to attack a large part of invaders in the Muskogee Territory. Spanish explorer Hernando de Soto and his expedition. So you mean to tell me these Indians used a Trojan horse? Now where's
That's what
that?
they trying to say.
So where have we heard
That's what
about a
they
Trojan
saying.
horse before?
Hmm. Very interesting.
Very. As always, it's never a straight timeline.
Well, like they make sure of that though.
So you figure, let's look at this 1540. There's already Indians who are encountering individuals from another country. This is 1540. This is over 200 years before the Civil War, and almost more than 100 years before England has come to the Americas to do any
Mm-hmm.
business. Interesting.
Indeed. Let's go on. You was checking out anybody else from the first one before I go
Yeah,
to the
well,
19th
yeah,
century.
because as where'd that go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Hold on. So that was the Battle of Mabila. And then it says the Mississippian culture were the combatants because the first combatants were the Spanish conquistador under Hernando de Soto. So who's the Mississippian culture?
Hmm.
Mississippian culture was a mound building Native American civilization. Archaeologists date from about 18 excuse me about 800 CE to 1600 CE, varying regionally. It was composed of a series of urban settlements and satellite villages linked together by a loose trading network. The largest city was Cahokia, believed to be a major religious center. The civilization flourished from the southern shores of the Great Lakes to western New York and western Pennsylvania in what is now the eastern Midwest, extending southwest into the lower Mississippi Valley and wrapping easterly around the southern foot of the Appalachians Barrier Range into what is now the southeastern United States. The Mississippian way of life began to develop in the Mississippi Valley, for which it is named. Cultures in the tributary Tennessee River Valley may have also begun to develop Mississippian characteristics at this point. Almost all dated Mississippian sites predate 1539 through 1540 when Hernando de Soto explored the area, with notable exceptions being the, the Natchez communities that maintained Mississippian culture practice in the 18th century. So when they say Mississippian culture, they're basically talking from the Great Lakes at New York all the way down to Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge territory.
Yes, it is. Very. Very huge area. Because what it got for Chief Tuscaloosa, just had a brief story on him. It says was a paramount chief of a Mississippian chiefdom in what is now the U.S. state of Alabama. His people were possible ancestors to the several southern Native American confederacies who later emerged in the region. The modern city of Tuscaloosa, Alabama is named after him.
So that sounds like there could have been a lot of tribes involved in this war.
Mm-hmm.
This is getting deep already, and we just got started.
Well, it's our first one on the list. I said, ain't that something?
So hopefully the Tiguex War or the Tiguex,
Tiguex, however you pronounce Tiguex
War. So let's see what we get here. Let me do this. And this was the second war that was recorded, according to Wikipedia. Second Indian war that was recorded, according to Wikipedia. And it says, although the DeSoto expedition found numerous battles earlier, the Tiguex War was the first named war between Europeans and Native Americans, what is now the United States. It was fought in the winter of 1540 through 41 by the expedition of Francisco Vázquez de Coronado against the 12 or 13 pueblos of Tiwa Indians, as well as others Puebloan tribes along both sides of the Rio Grande, north and south of present-day Bernalillo, New Mexico, in what was called the Tiguex province. The only book-length treatment of the Tiguex War is the historical novel Winter of the Metal People. It says a virtually unknown Tiguex leader who opposed Coronado was all these X's. Juayan, we're going to say Juayan, usually referred to in the chronicles by a Spanish nickname of Juan Aleman. Juan was from the Tuyaman Pueblo of Kufor, also Kufor or Alcanfor, which Coronado commandeered for his headquarters in the winters of 1540 through 41 and 1541 through 42. The Coronado expedition had the primary motivation of finding the silk and spices of the Indians, as well as gold, silver, and land for forced labor in Comedia estates. The Coronado expedition was huge in size, and with about 350 Spaniard men-at-arms, a large number of spouses, slaves, and servants, and as many as 2,000 Mexican Indian allies. Whoa. They had more than 2,000 Mexican Indian allies.
Indian allies. I caught that. Mexican Indian allies in 1540. Mexican Indians.
Mostly warriors from Aztec, Purepecha, and other tribes from central and western Mexico. The expedition also brought thousands of livestock, including horses, mules, sheep, cattle, and perhaps pigs. Okay,
Huh.
so
Well, baby, when they
Romans,
saying in 1540, they were mingling with Aztecs.
and they had already developed relationships with them because they said the Spaniard men at arms a large number of spouses. So, spouses to these men, slaves, and servants, and as many as 2,000 Mexican Indian allies, mostly warriors from Aztec, Purepecha, and other tribes from central and western Mexico.
Make you be like, hold up, man.
Okay, so this is basically stating that there had already been relationships established before 1540.
Mm-hmm. Between 1540, I mean before 1540, that's a
So,
low digest.
so we're gonna have to go and find out. Or does anybody know how long De Soto was actually in South America? Because it made it sound like he wiped out the Indians in South America and then went to
Mm-hmm.
some of the West Indies and then he left. That's what I always thought.
Well, that's how they always pass it along.
But here is basically stating that he and his men were here long enough to develop relationships and have spouses. You got to realize this is the 1500s. They weren't bringing their wives on no on no ship across no ocean to explore because they didn't know what they was going to come across. So the women normally stay. So that means these Spaniards had to marry Indian women,
Hmm.
and this is in the 1500s, during what they call the 16th century.
Yep. Makes you think a little, huh?
Dude, this is crazy. And another thing that I also said up here at the top of this was that there at says although the DeSoto expedition fought numerous battles earlier, so there were battles that were fought before this Tiguex War. This was the first named war between Europeans and Native Americans.
Mm-mm-mm.
It says in what is now the United States. So that means DeSoto had been involved in many battles. Him and his men had been involved in many battles, and then they end up what appears to be forming some type of alliance, whether it's by force or what have you, and they ended up coming north from Mexico to the United States or Central America at the time and exploring with these Indians or these Aztecs and encountering these Puebloans.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's see who these Puebloans are.
Let's dig them up. Hmm.
So we already got the Aztecs in play here, but I thought they disappeared.
Yeah, I thought they all supposed to been dead in 1540.
Okay, so the Puebloans or Pueblo people are Native Americans in the southwestern United States who share common agricultural material and religious practices. When Spaniards entered the sea beginning in the 16th century, they came across complex multi-story villages built of adobe, stone, and other local materials, which they called pueblos or towns, a term that later came to refer also to the peoples who lived in this village. So here's a question. They always made it seem like these Indians had teepees and mud huts. According to these, they had a dobies, and they were complex multi-story villages. Well, you know what multi-story means, right? More than one
Mm-hmm.
floor.
Yep.
There ain't no such thing as a two-story teepee. You do know that, right?
Mm-hmm. That's gone in the wind.
They were made of stone and other local materials, which they called pueblos or towns, a term that later came to refer also to peoples who lived in these villages.
Isn't that term still used now in Mexico for towns too?
Hmm.
Pueblo. Pueblo? No, just checking.
Grand
Yeah.
Rising Empress Copper Fox.
Peace, Empress. What up, sis?
Man.
Oh, we good. Digging up this history. American Indian Wars. We just on the second one. Oh,
So it says there are currently 19 pueblos that are still inhabited among the Taos, San Ildefonsos, the Acoma, the Zuni, and Hopi are the best known. Pueblo communities are located in the present day state of New Mexico, Arizona, and Texas, mostly along the Rio Grande and Colorado rivers and their tributaries. The term Anasazi is sometimes used to refer to Pueblo people, but it is now largely dispreferred. Anasazi is a Navajo word that means ancient ones or ancient enemy, hence Pueblo people's rejection of it. Puebloans speak languages from four different language families, and each Pueblo is further divided culturally by kinship systems and agricultural practice, although all cumulative varieties of maize, which is corn. Despite increasing pressure from Spanish and later Anglo American forces, Pueblo nations have maintained much of their traditional cultures, which center around agriculture practices, a tight knit community revolving around family, clans, and respect for tradition. Puebloans have been remarkably adept at preserving their core religious beliefs, all the while developing a syncretic, hold on, syncretic approach to Catholicism. In the 21st century, some 35,000 Pueblo are estimated to live in New Mexico and Arizona.
here we go again.
Okay. Wow. This is not how I thought this was going to go.
No, 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 no. And
So you
that's
have the Aztecs and the Spaniards, who are obviously, based off of this information, allies.
yep.
And they came across the Puebloans, and thus we have one of the wars, one of the first wars that was named the Tiguex War, Tiguex War. But there were many wars before that, and obviously there had been relationships developed before this.
Mm-hmm. I'm still puzzled on if the Aztecs supposed to have been dead when I went to school. How they running around in 1540 and 1541 with the Spaniards? Hmm. We said on to the next century, shall we say?
Yeah,
Because
we
it's going
must.
to get very interesting.
So we again we got to question everything because now the narrative was going to be there had been no wars from 1541 up until 1600, but we can't even
Mm-hmm.
say that because just because 1540 was the first named war doesn't mean it was the first war, because they already said there were numerous wars, and the Spaniards had already had a relationship with the Aztecs. Well, some
Yep.
of the Aztecs, not all of the Aztecs.
Mm-hmm.
Whew.
And then what got me on that? Mexican Indians. Can Mexican Indians be Aztecs and Spaniard children? See
They
these
was,
titles they throw out there. You get what I'm saying? That's why I
mm-hmm.
be writing it down. A Mexican Indian.
These were appear to be some of the first of what we would call mulattoes in the 1500s.
Setting up shop. Ain't that something?
Now, the silver lining in this is that these Puebloans maintained their culture and they were tight knit. And regardless of what happened, they maintained and kept their culture. Right? Which
Yep.
basically means is at any particular time during these conflicts, we could have said, you know what, let's get these colonizers out of here and just join together. We could
Mm,
have done that. But for
yeah.
whatever reason, we didn't.
Now we in this conundrum. Oh,
But the good news is we can now fix it.
yes, sir.
So there's hope. And the fact that the Puebloans maintained their culture even while they was attacked, they don't appear to have split up.
Or turned
And
they
that's
back on their ways.
right. And there are still some 35,000 in New Mexico and Arizona today.
To this day.
And depending on how the line was moved, the New Mexico line, I'm
Mm,
sure there are some on the other side of that imaginary line that separates the Americas from Mexico, which
yeah.
basically Central America from South America or the north part of South America.
Grand Rising David Corey. Grand Rising Pamela Hall.
Yeah, this morning we decided to start with the Indian Wars because we discovered and we wanted to take a look and see how long had Indians had relationships with the European colonizers, whether they be from England, Spain,
France.
France, Russia, Prussia,
Mm-hmm.
or some of the, as you'll find, the Mongolian dynasty.
Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, that's why I'm antsy to start in the 17th century. That's why I'm like, let me know when you're ready. This is where it get deep.
Okay.
Warning. I hope y'all buckled in for this one. First
Yeah.
two was just slap. Woo!
Yeah. So what we've already discovered is that there were Aztecs who joined the Spaniards and moved north into the who moved north into the Puebloan community and basically waged war. But they didn't just wage war; they were exploring, and these Spaniard men at arms, at large numbers, they had their spouses, slaves, and servants, and as many as 2,000 Mexican Indian allies, mostly warriors from the Aztec.
Mm-hmm.
And they had livestock with them, including horses, mules, sheep, cattle, and perhaps pigs.
Pigs.
Remember DeSoto and them brought pigs with them.
Yeah, pigs are not native here. Don't go for it.
This is crazy. So we're realizing and having to accept that there were relationships that Indians had already had and allies and alliances created with the European colonizers early in the 1500s. Now, what we don't know is if there were any treaties signed or there were any agreements, or if these people were caught by surprise and they just got taken into basically custody and became prisoners of war.
Yeah, I'm posting a link to the Battle of Marbella Mabila, the first battle, well, the first one they had recorded, which is now known as Mobile, Alabama. So anyone who missed it, if you want a copy of it, I just posted in the chat.
So keep in mind, this is over 200 years before the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
This is over 200 years before the Revolutionary War.
Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, what, over 200 years before the U.S. even is the U.S. Concept, paper, thought.
Okay.
I got y'all seatbelts on, hard hats. I think we need more than picks here. Get them jackhammers. It's gonna get crazy.
So
Top
now,
of the 17th century.
yeah, so we're going on to the 17th century or the 1600s. And the first conflict that we come across, that doesn't mean this is the first conflict that happened in the 1600s, between 1600s and 1542. But the first recorded conflict, which was named, are the Navajo Wars.
And that's from 1600 to 1866. I repeat again, 1600 to 1866.
And if you remember, 1866 was when a treaty was signed.
Yes.
So think about this. We got to send this link too, because they need to see.
Yeah, I'm gonna post this again. If you want to see it for yourselves, I'm posting a link back up here. Trust and believe. This is a good look to want to see, to want to keep. Major head scratcher. What it say? Combatants on one side in this war was the crown of the castle from 1600 to 1716. Spain, 1716 to 1821. Mexico, 1821 to 1848. The United States, 1849 to 1866. Now, who was they fighting again?
They were fighting in Navajo, but let's break this down in its proper perspective so people can get a better understanding. These Navajo were at war with 4 different entities between 1600 and 1866. You're talking about over 266 years of continuous fighting. So let's see how this breaks down. From 1600 to 1760, the Navajo were fighting the Crown of Castile. They were fighting them for 116 years.
A brief history on them. It says the Crown of Castile was a medieval state in the Iberian Peninsula that formed in 1230 as a result of the third and definitive union of the crowns. And some decades later, the Parliament of Kingdoms of Castile and Legion upon, all right, yeah, put it like this, Liberian. So Iberian Peninsula, they were Iberians.
So they were fighting Iberians for over 116 years. And obviously they lost. And the reason why we say they lost, and we know they lost, is because in 1760, when the Crown of Castile stopped fighting them, Spain took over and fought the Navajo from 1716 to 1821.
Quick history on them. It says Spain, officially the Kingdom of Spain, is a country mostly located in Europe. It's continental European. It says its continental European territory is situated on the Iberian Peninsula. So could it be the Crown of Castile and Spain are the same people?
Sounds that way. They changed their name to Spain while they was fighting the Navajo.
And what was most interesting about Spain, officially the Kingdom of Spain, is a country mostly located in Europe. So Spanish would be what? Europeans.
That's true.
And that's 1716 to 1821.
And then obviously that wasn't enough because After Spain stops fighting the Navajo, Mexico fights the Navajo from 1821 to 1848.
And it says Mexico, officially the United Mexican States, is a country in the southern portion of North America. It is bordered to the north by the United States, to the south, and west by the Pacific Ocean, to the southeast by Guatemala, Belize, and the Caribbean Sea, Caribbean Sea, and to the east by the Gulf of Mexico. Brief history.
And then Mexico obviously needed help because after they were fighting the Navajo between 1821 and 1848, the United States decided to fight the Navajo in 1849 to 1866. And then and only then did we come up with the result of the long walk of the Navajo from 1863 to 1868, and the Navajos were moved to reservations. So let's see what the long walk of the Navajo is, because this deserves to be looked at, considering that you're talking about over 266 years of battling with what appeared to be one tribe. The long walk of the Navajo, also called the long walk of Bosque Redondo, refers to the 1864 deportation and attempted ethnic cleansing of the Navajo people by the government of the United States of America. Navajos were forced to walk from their land in what is now Arizona to eastern Mexico. Some 53 different forced marches occurred between August 1864 and the end of 1866. Some anthropologists claim that the collective trauma of the long walk is critical to contemporary Navajos' sense of identity as a people. They were again given in protection, but two of their four sacred mountains were lost to them, as well as about one third of their traditionally held land. In March, a company of 52 citizens, led by Jose Manuel Sanchez, drove off a bunch of Navajo horses, but Captain Wingate followed the trail and recovered the horses for the Navajo who had killed Sanchez. Another group of citizens ravaged Navajo ranches in the vicinity of Beautiful Mountain. Also during this time, a party of Mexicans and Pueblo Indians captured 12 Navajo in a raid. Whoa, back up.
Please do. Please do.
Also during this time, a party of Mexicans and Pueblo Indians captured 12 Navajo in a raid, and three were brought in. So obviously, the Pueblo were allied with the United States by this time.
Yep.
Because remember, in 1540, they were at war with De Soto and the Spaniards and the Aztecs. Now in the 1860s, some of the Pueblo Indians captured 12 Navajo in a raid, and three were brought in. In August 9th, 1861, Lieutenant Colonel Manuel Antonio Chavez of the Mexico Volunteer Militia took command of a garrison of three companies numbering 8 officers and 206 men of Fort Fauntleroy. Chavez was later accused of being frugal in dispensing his post supplies to the 1,000 or more Navajos that had remained close to the fort and was maintaining remarkable lax discipline. Horse races began on September 10th and continued until the late afternoon of September 13th. Colonel Chavez permitted post uh, sutler A.K. Kavanaugh to supply liquor freely to the Navajos. There was a dispute about which horse won the race. A shot rang out, followed by a fusillade. Almost immediately, 200 Navajo, well armed and mounted, advanced towards the guards, shooting at the men. They were fired upon by the soldiers and scattered, leaving 12 dead bodies and 40 prisoners. On hearing this, General Canby demanded a full report from Chavez, who did not comply. Colonel Canby sent Captain Andrew E. Evans to the fort named Fort Lyon, since since September 25th, when he took command. Manuel Chavez, suspended from command, was confined to the limits of Albuquerque, pending a court martial. The charges were dismissed after 2 months. In February 1861, Manuel Chavez took the field with 400 militia and ransacked Navajo land, basically without federal authority.
Ain't that something? Back at it again.
Wow. So let's look at who these Navajo were. We're on the first conflict of the first recorded conflict of the 17th centuries between 1600 and 1866, called the Navajo Wars. The Navajo Wars were fought between basically three countries and the Navajo Indians from 1600 to 1866. So from the Crown of Castile to Spain, Mexico, and then the United States, it looks like what appears to be over 266 years of straight battle with the Navajo. Right? And if you figure that was the reason why they made them go on those death marches, because they gave them such a hard time. So they wanted to make those people pay. So they are Native American people of the Southwestern United States. The Navajo people are politically divided between two federally recognized tribes, the Navajo Nation and the Colorado River Indian tribes. At more than 300,000 enrolled tribal members as of 2015, the Navajo Nation is the second largest federally recognized tribe in the U.S., the Cherokee Nation being the largest, and has the largest reservation in the country. The reservation straddles the Four Corners region and covers more than 27,000 square miles of land in Arizona, Utah, and Mexico. The Navajo language is spoken throughout the region, and most Navajo also speak English. The states with the largest Navajo populations are Arizona, 140,263, and New Mexico, 108,306. More than 3/4 of the enrolled Navajo population reside in these two states. So when we look at their little early history, the Navajo are speakers of Nadine, Southern Athabascan language. They call it Din Dizad, which literally means people's language. The language comprises of two geographic, mutually intelligible dialects. The Apache language is closely related to the Navajo language. The Navajo and Apache are believed to have migrated from northwestern Canada and eastern Alaska, where the majority of Athabascan speakers reside. Speakers of various and other Athabascan languages located in Canada may still comprehend the Navajo language despite the geographic and linguistic deviation of the languages. Additionally, some Navajos speak Navajo Sign Language, which is either a dialect or daughter of Plain Sign Talk. Some also speak Plain Sign Talk itself. So let's go back up to the top of this right quick, where it says,
they got some explaining to do.
yeah. More than 300,000 enrolled tribal members as of 2015. The Navajo Nation is the second largest federally recognized tribe in the U.S. and has the largest reservation in the country. The reservation straddles the Four Corners. Let's look at what they consider the Four Corners. The Four Corners, as suggested by Wikipedia, is a region of the United States consisting of the southwestern corner of Colorado, southeastern corner of Utah, the northeastern corner of Arizona, and the northwestern corner of New Mexico. The Four Corners area is named after the quadrupoint at the intersection of approximately 37 degrees north latitude and 109 and 03 west longitude, where the boundaries of the four states meet and are marked by the Four Corners Monument. It is the only location in the United States where four states meet. Most of the Four Corners reign belongs to semi-autonomous Native American nations, the largest of which is the Navajo Nation, followed by Hopi, Ute, and the Zuni tribal reserves and nations. The Four Corners region is part of the larger region known as the Colorado Plateau and is mostly rural, rugged, and arid. In addition to the monument, commonly visited areas within the Four Corners include Monument Valley, Mesa Verde National Park, Chaco Canyon, Canyons of the Ancients National Monument, and Canyon de Chile National Monument. The most popular city in the Four Corners region is Farmington, New Mexico, followed by Durango, Colorado. Okay, so that's their definition of the Four Corners. Wow. So we were just talking about the Navajo Wars and how these Indians have been at war for over 266 years with the Crown of Castile, Spain, Mexico, and eventually the United States. So now they have the second largest, they are the second largest federally recognized tribe, and they are on the largest reservation.
I don't think that's a coincidence.
Now, all this happened before the Europeans or England has even set foot on the United States or the Americas at this time. We've only covered from 1540 to 1600.
Yeah, we just in the top of the 1600s.
So 10 years after the Crown of Castile, basically the prior name of Spain, started warring with the Navajo, then there was the Anglo-Powhatan Wars from 1610 to 1646. So you have the English colonies versus the Powhatan Confederacy. Now, how many people knew there was a Powhatan Confederacy?
I didn't, not until reading.
And for all of you that are not aware, a confederacy is when tribes and or bands of Indians come together during a time of war to fight. So they all fight up under the Powhatan flag, if you will, but you have numerous tribes up under that Powhatan flag. So this war between the English colony and the Powhatan Confederation happened between 1610 and 1646. So let's look at the resulting outcome of that war. Remember, this is 1610 to 1646, and there have been several relationships between tribes and Europeans developed, so much so that there are already marriages and deep relationships built between tribes and colonies.
Yep.
So, Treaty of Middle Plantation was a result of the Anglo and the Powhatan Wars. So let's read on that a little bit. Treaty of 1677. Now remember, this treaty happened 100 years before the 13 colonies declared their independence and start warring with Britain. The Treaty of 1677, or the treaty between Virginia and the Indians, was signed in Virginia on May 28, 1677 between Charles II of England and representatives from various Virginia Native American tribes, including Nottoway, the Appomattox, the Wayanouki, the Nansemons, the Nanzatico, the Monacans, or as I say, Monacans, the Sapani, and the Miharan, following the end of Bacon's rebellion. So all of these tribes that were mentioned fell up under the Powhatan Confederacy. So it wasn't just the Powhatan Indians that were battling. It was the Nottoway, the Appomattox, the Nanzimans, the Nanzatico, the Monacans or Monacans, the Sapani, and the Miharan. And this followed the end of Bacon's rebellion.
Why? Why would the Indian Wars have anything to do with Bacon's rebellion?
Do we need to read what Bacon's rebellion was about?
We can pull up a very, very quick little.
So, Bacon's Rebellion was an armed rebellion in 1676 by Virginia settlers led by Nathaniel Bacon against the rule of Governor William Berkeley. The colonies dismissed the policy as it related to the political changes of its western frontier, along with other challenges, including leaving Bacon out of his inner circle, refusing to allow Bacon to be part of his fur trade with Native Americans, and attacks by the Tiguex people. And the Tiguex people were a Native American people who lived in Virginia. They spoke an Algonquin language, and they may have been a branch of the Nanticoke tribe, historically based in the eastern shore of Maryland. The Nanticoke considered the Algonquin Lenape as grandfathers. So this helped to motivate a popular uprising against Berkeley, which failed to address the demands of the colonists regarding their safety. Thousands of Virginians from all classes, including those in indentured servitude and races, rose up in arms against Berkeley, attacking Native Americans, chasing Berkeley from Jamestown, Virginia, and ultimately torching the capital. So wait a minute. Thousands of Virginians from all classes, including those in indentured servitude and races, rose up in the arms against Berkeley, attacking Native Americans and chasing Berkeley from Jamestown, Virginia, and ultimately torching the capital. Rebellion was first suppressed by a few armed merchant ships from London, whose captain said that Berkeley and the loyalist government forces from England arrived soon after, spent several years defeating pockets of the resistance and reforming the colonial government to be once more under direct royal control. It was the first rebellion in the American colonies in which discontented frontiersmen took part. In Maryland, involving John Cody and Josiah Findall, took place shortly afterwards. The lines between European indentured servants and Africans, many enslaved until death or freed, united by their bond servitude, disturbed the ruling class, who responded by hardening the racial caste of slavery in an attempt to divide the two races from subsequent uniting uprisings with the passage of the Virginia Slave Codes of 1705. While the farmers did not succeed in their initial goal of driving the Native Americans from Virginia, the rebellion did result in Berkeley being recalled to England.
What are these so-called Africans at during these Indian Wars? I'm just asking.
Well, we know that there are some things that are being hidden and not being said and are being said, because if you go back up where it says thousands of Virginians from all classes, including those in indentured servitude and races. So you basically talking about people that were in all different classes rose up and they started chasing Berkeley. Since when are all different classes of people, all different races, even indentured servants, going to raise up in arms against Berkeley? So if I'm reading this right, that means the indentured servants had arms, all different races had arms. Interesting to say the very least. And it was said there was also a similar uprising that took place shortly afterwards. It says that the alliance between European indentured servants. So let's look at who these European indentured servants were. Indentured servitude in the Americas was a means by which immigrants, typically young Europeans under 25, came to the Americas from the early 17th to early 20th centuries. Immigrants would contract to work for an American employer for a period of time, usually between 1 and 7 years. And it goes on to say, paying for their passage to the Americas. The employer provided sustenance for this indentured servant, but no wages. He could restrict some of the activities, such as marriage, could sell or transfer their contract to another employer, and could seek legal sanctions, such as prison, if they ran away. At the end of the agreed time period, the servant would become free to go his own way and demand wages for his work. In some cases, the newly free person also received an item of value, such as a small parcel of land and a new suit of clothes. The consensus view among economic historians and economists is that the indentured servitude became popular in the 13 colonies in the 17th century because of a large demand for labor there. Coupled with a labor surplus in Europe and high cost of transatlantic transportation beyond the means of European workers between the 1630s and the American Revolution, one half to two-thirds of white immigrants to the 13 colonies arrived under indentures. 500,000 Europeans, mostly young men, also went to the Caribbean under indentured work on plantations. Most indentures were voluntary, although some people were tricked or forced into them. A debt peonage system similar to indentured was also used in southern New England and Long Island to control and assimilate Native Americans from the 1600s through the American Revolution. Indentured servitude continued to be used in North America until the early 20th century, but the number of indentured servants declined over time. Although experts do not agree with the cause of the decline, some possible factors for American colonies include changes in the labor market and the legal system that made it cheaper and less risky for an employer to hire African slave labor or paid employees, or made indentures unlawful. Increased affordability of travel to North America that made immigrants less likely to rely on indentures to pay travel costs, and the effects of American Revolution, particularly on immigration from Britain. In the Caribbean, the number of indentured servants from Europe began to decline in the 17th century as Europeans became aware of the cruelty of plantation masters and the high death rate of servants, largely due to tropical disease. After the British Empire ended slavery in 1833, plantation owners returned to indentured servitude for labor, with most servants coming from India, until the British government prohibited the practice in 1917. Is it possible for everybody to hear me? Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, you're definitely good. I'm gonna check it. You're good.
Okay. But are you peeping what this says about indentured servants?
Say that one more time.
I said, are you peeping what it talks about when it comes to these indentured servants?
I'm actually trying to find where you're at.
I clicked on indentured servitude in Americas. Let me go ahead and see if I can
Okay.
post it in the chat.
Okay.
Sorry, it just went from one link to the next.
No, you're good.
I'll put it in the chat, and I'm also going to put it in the back chat. All right. So, indentured servitude was far more prevalent. We knew this, but it was far more prevalent than they're even talked about. Because they were saying they were still using indentured servants up until the 20th century. And they said the main cause was because they needed help. But wait a minute, I thought you had slaves as early as the 1600s.
Hmm.
So these indentured servants were actually the first slaves to come over here. Because
Wow.
it talks about the harsh cruel. It talks about the cruelty of the master or the individuals that needed the servitude.
Mic check, mic check.
Yeah.
Golden.
All right. Now I had to do something real quick.
Now, does that have anything to do with the what is it? The not the definition of the definition of slavery, or is it uh we discussed it about jail and the reason for jail, and you know what I'm saying? It's the only
Yeah,
time.
basically, yeah. Because you got to remember, involuntary servitude or slavery is illegal unless convicted of crimes. So the jail system that we have today, go back and look when this type of system was implemented. It was right after the so-called freeing of slaves. And at the same time, you had all these black codes, so-called black codes that's popping up that made it easy. Our people, if you was delinquent, standing on the street, if a husband and wife, Aboriginal husband and wife were arguing out in public, looking eye to eye, spitting on the ground, back then was enough to get you sent away to the work camp.
But you would only need to do that. So just think about this for a second. Again, I could be wrong. It wouldn't be the first nor the last time. You would only need to institute these codes if these individuals were indentured servants, and you need to keep them as indentured servants. If they were slaves, you wouldn't need to create these codes.
Exactly. It
So
was just as much as slaves as people are today who clock into a 9 to 5.
so there was really no slavery, if you think about it.
Choosing.
They were indentured servants that broke laws and their debt got extended.
Basically,
Or if I had you as an indentured servant for 6 years and I say you violated something, I could then sell your time to somebody else. And now they bought your time.
it says, like I said before, we have to start acting like this is new. It's no different than selling and transferring debt.
Exactly.
None of this is new.
On Cliff Tip
Always been
says
going
credit.
on. Yeah. What you think credit really is? Credit is you owe me. And in good faith, you're gonna work it off to pay it off down the line. It's no different.
So what we were doing, we was reading Bacon's Rebellion and how thousands of Virginians from all classes, including those in indentured servitude, that's the part that trips me up because they had this in parentheses. And then outside the parentheses, they said, and races, rose up in arms against Berkeley, attacking Native Americans, chasing Berkeley from Jamestown, Virginia, and ultimately torching the capital. So they was already breaking people down into classes and races. Well, that's this is revisionist history because they could put anything they want here. So we really don't know what all of this means because this is not 1790. This is in 1600s. And remember, they didn't
Hmm.
start classifying people legally until 1790 when they created the census.
But see, I separate it like this. I know them original slaves wasn't no American Indians because how can you be enslaving Indians and fighting them at the same time? You get Indian slaves as you go to war with certain tribes and you take them as prisoners of W and you have them work off. Because we got to remember at the same time that this is going on, Aren't there Indian wars going on and raids?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Mm-mm-mm. You ever got the chance to read the Treaty of 1677, the one that was attached to the war?
Uh, yeah, I did read it. Hold on, let me go back. Yeah, I did read the treaty of 1677.
Mm.
I didn't get to finish it though because I stopped at Bacon's Rebellion. Oh yes, this is the most important part about Bacon's Rebellion. It says the treaty designated those that signed as tributary tribes, meaning they were guaranteed their homeland territories, hunting and fishing rights, and the right to keep and bear arms and other colonial protections, so long as they maintain obedience and subjugation to the English Empire. So who was
Hmm.
this? Now, so who were these Indians that was part of this treaty? They were the Indians under the Powhatan Confederacy, which composed of the Nottoway, the Appomattox, the Wayanoke, the Nansemond, the Nanzatico, the Monacan or the Monacan, the Sapani, and the Maharan. Those were the tribes that signed as tributary tribes, meaning they were guaranteed their homeland territories, hunting and fishing rights, and the right to keep and bear arms and other colonial protections, so as long as they maintain obedience and subjugation to the English Empire. So you're talking
Hmm.
about one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight tribes that, as of 1677, are now under subjugation to the English Empire.
Check this out right up under what it said. The 21 articles of the treaty were confirmed when England sent gifts to the chiefs along with various badges of authority. Give somebody an illusion of power and authority, you'll be surprised what people will do to each other. Let's keep this 100.
So they basically deputized them.
Yeah.
The queen of Pamunkey, known as Kokako Kiseki
To
to
the
the
English.
English, received a red velvet cap, which was fastened with a silver frontlet and silver chains.
Doesn't that sound like one of their little military caps at the time?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm. And this is
And
just the second war of the 1600s. Well, second recorded war of the 1600s.
mhm.
Mm.
And
And they,
below you have the witnesses. The Native American leaders who signed the treaty include Queen Pamunkey and her son, Captain John West, the king of the Nottaways.
King, what's his name?
It doesn't say the name, but it says King. Oh, you talking about King Perakuta? You'll
Yeah.
say Perakuta of the Appomattox, the Queen of the Wayanoaki, King of the Desmonds, King Pontachus of the Satiocoes, Nesmonds, and the Portabachios, Choes, King Cyrano of the Monacans. They said Monacans, they spelled it that way. Manakins, or Monacans. King Mastigone of the Sapanis. Chief Takapoake of the Saponis. Chief Nsequero of the Maharans. And then Chief Horehona of the Mahadans. It says, according to Helen Roundtree, these signatories were added in and annexed between April and June 1680.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all them tribes are European now. But this is the thing that me and Tim make is showing that a lot of these tribes had relationships with other nations way before they showing you in the 1800s. That you got to remember, we in the 1600s, and you have Indian nations that's allies with foreign countries. They doing treaties together, and treaties making them allies, and they fighting against other Indians together. Ugh. We're going down to the next war.
Yeah.
That would be the Pequot Wars, 1836 to 1838. What's that? The Massachusetts Bay Colony, Plymouth Colony, Saybrook Colony, Connecticut Colony, and they were fighting against the Pequots. They say the Pequot was defeated, and the Treaty of Hartford came from out of that.
Okay, so it's interesting that they talk about the Pequot being defeated, but
Mm,
who they don't put up here in it where it says the combatants, they don't show you the tribe that beat them or sold them out.
mm-hmm.
That doesn't come until we look at the Treaty of Hartford.
Yeah, because in a small thing, it said the Pequot Wars was an armed conflict that took place between 1636 and 1638 in New England between the Pequot tribe and an alliance of colonists of the Massachusetts Bay, Plymouth, and Saybrook colonies and their allies from the what's that the
Narragansett,
Narragansett and
the
Mohegan
Mohegans.
tribes. Yep.
So let's look at this treaty, shall we? It says the Treaty of Hartford was a treaty concluded between England, the Mohegan, and the Narragansett on 21 September 1638 in Hartford, Connecticut. It says the Pequot War of 1636 and 1637 saw the virtual elimination of the Pequot Indians. The victors, English colonists living along the Connecticut River, and their Mohegan and Narragansett allies met to decide on the division of the fruits of victory. I'm going to say that again. The victors, English colonists living along the Connecticut River, and their Mohegan and Narragansett allies met to decide on the division of the fruits of victory. So the Pequot Wars were virtually the Pequot Indians fighting the English colonies, the Mohegans, and the Narragansetts. So you have one tribe of Indians fighting against two tribes in the English colonies.
And yeah, and five other colonies.
And what they did was they split up the Pequot's land and sent them off to the West Indies as slaves, the ones that they didn't destroy.
Yeah, it tells you the Mohegan and Narragansett tribes and their three English settlements that would become the Connecticut River Colony in 1639 participated in the treaty. Surviving Pequot prisoners were divided between the tribes, with an unspecific number of captives being kept by the English. Each tribe received 80 captives, with 20 captives being awarded to the Negrete, a Sachem of the Eastern Natek, who were allied with the dang. There's two more tribes that was allied with the Narragansett in this.
So the Narragansett went and got them some help.
They went to go get them two more tribes to help them. And it says the Pequot lands went to the Connecticut River towns. The other major feature of this treaty was to outlaw the Pequot name. Any survivors, let me say it again, the other major feature of this treaty was to outlaw the Pequot name. Any survivors would be referred to in the future as Mohegans or Narragansett. No Pequot town or settlement would be allowed. This treaty was signed on September 21st, 1638. The Massachusetts Bay Colony, which had also participated in the anti-Pequot alliance, was not was not a party to the Treaty of Hartford. This led to a dispute between Massachusetts and Connecticut, with the Bay Colony insisting that the Treaty of Hartford usurp its rights over Pequot lands under previous agreements. Ooh, with the Narragansett and the Mohegans. Massachusetts got bucked.
So the Massachusetts Bay Colony and the
Got screwed in the
Connecticut River
deal.
Colony were beefing.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna post this direct one in the chat too. So if y'all want to go directly to the one we just read, let's post it up in the chat. Mm-mm-mm.
And this is just 1638, y'all.
Yep. I would say moving on to 1642. What did it say? 1642 to 1698. Beaver Wars. We got the Iroquois, England, and the Dutch Republic. And they're fighting Huron, Erie, Neutral, Ottawa, Obi, what's that? Mississauga, Potawatomi, Algonquin, Shawnee, Wienero, what's that? Makin, Inu, what's that?
Abenaki.
Abenaki, Miami. I knew Miami was a tribe. I've been reading on them lately. The Illinois Confederation, other nations allied with France and France.
So the Beaver Wars were between France, England, and Dutch, but
And
the fighters were the Iroquois on the English and Dutch side, and the France and the France with all these Indians on their side. And these the Beaver Wars between 1942 and 1642 and 1698.
I posted the page that we're reading from right now, or directly in the chat if anybody want to check it out and go along as we go along with the wars.
Now, what they don't show is the result or the outcome.
I think we kind of know this. How many of these tribes on this list that was fighting against
The Iroquois
you even know of? But now listen who the allies of the Iroquois are at this time. This is 1642 to 1698. The Iroquois are allied with England and the Dutch Republic.
Exactly. So the Iroquois, these people of the Longhouse, the Haudenosaunee, which is what they call themselves, or the people of Longhouse, are historically powerful Northeast Native American Confederacy. They were known during the colonial years to the French as the Iroquois League, and later as the Iroquois Confederacy, and to the English as the Five Nations, comprising of Mohawk, Onondaga, Oneida, Cayuga, and Seneca. After 1722, they accepted the Tuscarora people from the southeast into their confederacy and became known as the Six Nations. So before during this war, they were the Five Nations to the English, and they were the Iroquois League to the French. So when the French was battling them, they were Iroquois.
Grand Rising Joe 47, peace. Peace, Oak Cliff Tiff. Sean Shy 9, Grand Rising, peace.
Wow. This is a lot.
Yeah. And think about it, we're not even that far in. This is what? The fourth war in the 1600s?
The fourth war that they're telling us about.
Yeah, like we're saying again, these are all the recorded ones that they're telling us about. But even the ones that they're telling you about, when you look at the components on who was on what side, because The question was always, you don't never see in history England or the Dutch or France sending large militaries over here.
They didn't have to.
No, because you see who the military was. And then what? We're coming up to the next war. What's this? K.E. Kef's War,
Mm-hmm.
also known as the Waparinga, the Wapenringer War, was a conflict for 1643 to 1645 between settlers of the nascent colony of the New Netherlands and the native Lenape population in what would later become the New York metropolitan area of the United States. Let me read it again. It says from 1643 to 1645, between settlers of the nascent colony of New Netherlands and the native Lenape population in what would later become the New York metropolitan area of the United States. That's New Netherlands fighting in Lenape in 1643. At the same time, the Beaver Wars are going on. See, remember these dates that we telling you. Beaver Wars started in 1642, ended in 1698. Kef's War started in 1643, ended in 1645. So a lot of these wars do run hand in hand.
You had to have a lot of Indians doing a
Mm-hmm.
lot of fighting for this to take place.
Because you got to remember the Anglo and Powhatan Wars went from 1610 to 1646. So the Powhatan War is still going along, right along with the Beavers War, that's going along with Kef's War. Mm-mm-mm.
Well, Empress Copper Fox, she says it's a sad scalping season starting with our own people's bloody sellouts. But you have to look at it from this perspective. And this is something that we've always talked about. We like to brag and boast of how we're the first to do at being great. But what we don't take responsibility for as a massive or as a unit is we were the first sellouts. We were the first sinners. We were the
Yep, we were
first
first. Yep,
enslavers. We were the
yep.
first thugs. We were the first at being bad. We were the first at being bullies. We were the first at raping and pillaging.
We
Now that
must
doesn't
accept
mean we
that.
can't right. That doesn't mean we can't fix this. But the reason why we're going through this now is because we haven't accepted responsibility. We've always placed the responsibility off on somebody else. This is fixable.
Yeah, we just have to start accepting the part that we played in it. Stop acting like we're so innocent, because we do, and we and our ancestors have played parts in this. I mean, we're just in the top of it. We haven't got down to the part that's really gonna make you start questioning everything. I'm just gonna read off a couple of the colonies that the Netherlands had over here and where it was at. Because see, a lot of people don't know this. The Netherlands had colonies in New York, New Jersey, Delaware, and Connecticut, with small outposts in Pennsylvania and Rhode Island. But when you think about people coming here and selling and settling, they only tell you about the big three: Spain, France, and Britain. No, there's a whole lot more. Because what, we dropped down to the Peachtree War, 1655. What's that? The Shinnecock Nation and allied Native Americans on several New Netherlands settlements along with the Hudson River, centered on New York and Amsterdam. Netherlands fighting again. From 1655, they fought the Shinnecock and allied tribes on the island of New York. We know the outcome of that. And guess who lived there? They said Shinnecock people, also called the Constaga by the English, were Iroquois-speaking Native Americans who lived in areas adjacent to the Saskatchewan River and its tributaries, ranging from its upper reaches in the southern part of what is now New York through eastern and central Pennsylvania.
It is west of the upper Delaware River and the Delaware Nations, with lands extending beyond the mouth of the Susquehanna in Maryland, along the west bank of the Potomac and the north end of the Chesapeake Bay. Evidence of their habitation has also been found in northern West Virginia and portions of southwestern Pennsylvania, which could be reached via the gaps of Allegheny or several countries to the south via the Cumberland Narrows Pass, which held the Trail. Excuse me. Both passes abutted their range and could be reached through connecting valleys from the West Branch, Susquehanna, and their large settlement of Conestoga, Pennsylvania.
Mm-mm-mm.
This reminds me, you know what this reminds me of?
What's that?
And you and I had this conversation last night. When we talk about the NBA, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about the NBA during the days of Jordan, the team that you got drafted to generally was a team that you stayed with. Now everybody's creating super teams because what's happening is people don't like the way that things are coming out. So you got these players like, okay, well, me and you gonna have a short contract, so then we're gonna work together and we're gonna form these super teams so we can win. That's what it seems like these tribes are doing because it's like, okay, y'all tribing up, y'all align with Spain, okay, we're gonna align with England. Oh, y'all aligning with England and Spain, we're gonna align with the Dutch, the
Mm-hmm.
Netherlands, because they want to increase their numbers and they want to get access to the territory and they want rights of passage to what the water and the resources. They created the colonies, the individuals from the European colonies created a situation to where they have these tribes fighting over resources.
Mm-hmm. And what's this? I'm looking at the next wars. I guess we'll finish the 17th century and we can pick off on the 18th century tomorrow's Rising show.
Yeah.
Because we got 3 wars left in this one. What's the next one? The Espus. Esopus wars.
Esopus War.
Esopus. That's from Esopus wars are from 1659 to 1663. Esopus Wars were 2 localized conflicts between the indigenous Esopus tribe of the Lenape Indians, Delaware, and the colonists, New Netherlands, during the later half of the 17th century in what is now Ulster County, New York. Like many other wars during the colonial period, they were rooted in. Hold on, I gotta bring it up where it says they were rooted in. They were rooted in competition between European and Indian cultures. Aggravated by mutual misunderstanding and suspicion, the first battle was started by Dutch settlers. The second war was a continuing of grudges on the part of the Espuis tribe. The most lasting result of the war was a display of power by the Uspus. Those 2 wars coincided with the boarding of English interests in the Dutch territories of the New World. The Dutch difficulty in defeating them altered the English to the power of these people. So this who they were fighting. So at this time, you got the Dutch and New Netherlands fighting Indians in what we know as New York, taking that land. New York, New Jersey.
So let me read the background right quick. And it says in
Mm-hmm.
1609, Henry Hudson explored the river, which was named after him. Many of the natives he encountered had never seen European men before, and some were unaware that there were any other people in the world. They were disturbed when 5 years later, a Dutch Fattigor trading post was established where Kingston, New York stands today. This land was occupied by the Esopus tribe. We use it for farming. They destroyed the post and drove the settlers back to the south. Colonists established a new settlement in 1652 at Kingston, but the Esopos drove them out again. In 1658, the Dutch returned to the area as they believed it good for farming. They built a stockade to defend the village. The colony was named Woolwich. Skirmishes continued, but the Esopos were not able to repel the Europeans. Instead, the Esopos granted the land to the settlers. They hoped to limit the foreigners and keep them from overrunning too much important cropland. So because we gotta look at how much land these wars are being fought over. I'm starting to think these wars weren't as big as we're thinking. They seem to be small skirmishes. Because you talking about 1609. This is in New York, right? So again, there was no CNN, and it's not like the tribes could actually see what was going on. You figured these individual people, let Wikipedia tell it, they had never seen Europeans before.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't aware that there were any other people in the world. Now, that might be just a narrative that they're speaking just to make them appear as savages. But we have to keep in mind that this is a lot of land to cover on foot, or even using a horse. So I don't know. The thing that we don't know is what was the size of these tribes that were fighting.
Mm-mm-mm.
But
I said, moving forward. Next one is King Philip's War from 1675 to 1678. First combatants were New England Confederation, the Mohegans, and the Pequots. They were fighting the Wampanoag, the Nipmuc, the Podunk, the Narragansett, and the Nashaway. And it says the colony victory in Southern Theater, Native victory in Northern Theater.
isn't that funny that they were called the Pequots from 1675 to 1678, but according to it also depends on where they're fighting, so we have to look at where they're fighting. Because up here in 1636 and 1638, they were defeated in Massachusetts or
And they were
Connecticut.
not allowed to call themselves the Pequots anymore.
So where was this war? Let's look. David said, hard hats on, rocks are falling.
Mm-hmm.
It said King Philip's War, sometimes called the First Indian War, which we know is not the case, was an armed conflict in 1675 through 1678 between Indian inhabitants of New England and New England colonists and their Indian allies. The war was named the Metacomet, and the Wampanoag chief, who adopted the name Philip because of the friendly relations between his father, Massasoit, and the Mayflower Pilgrims. The war continued in the most northern reaches of the New England until the signing of the Costco Bay in April 1678. The Massasoit had maintained a long-standing alliance with the colonists. Metacom, 1638 to 1676, was his younger son, and he became tribal chief in 1662 after Massasoit's death. Metacom, however, did not maintain his father's alliance between the Wampanoags and the colonists. The colonists insisted that the peace agreement in 1671 should include the surrender of Indian guns. The three Wampanoag were hanged for murder in Plymouth Colony in 1675, which increased the tensions. Colonial militia and Indian raiding parties spread over Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Maine over the next 6 months. The Narragansetts remained neutral, but several individual Narragansetts participated in raids of colonial strongholds and militia, so colonial leaders deemed the Narragansetts to be in violation of peace treaties. They assembled the largest colonial army the New England had yet to muster, consisting of 1,000 militia and 150 Indians. Okay, so this gives you an idea of the size of some of these wars. And Governor Josiah Winslow marshaled them to attack the Narragansetts in November 1675. They attacked and burned Indian villages throughout Rhode Island territory, culminating with an attack of the Narragansetts' main fort called the Great Swamp Fight. An estimated 150 Narragansetts were killed, and many of them women and children, and the Indian coalition was then taken over by Narragansett Sachem Conachet. They pushed back the colonial frontier in Massachusetts Bay, Plymouth, and Rhode Island colonies, burning towns as they went, including Providence. In March of 1676, however, the colonial militia overwhelmed the Indian coalition, and by the end of the war, the Wampanoags and the Narragansett allies were almost completely destroyed. Metacom fled to the Mount Hope, where he was finally killed by the militia. The war was the greatest calamity to occur in the 17th century. New England and is considered by many to be the deadliest war in the history of American colonization. In the space of little more than a year, 12 of the region's towns were destroyed and many more damaged. The economy of Plymouth and the Rhode Island colonies was all but ruined, and their population was decimated, losing 1/10 of all men available for military service. More than half of New England's towns were attacked by Indians. King Philip's War began the development of an independent American identity. The New England colonists, their enemies without support from any outside government or military, and this gave them a group identity separate and distinct from Britain.
Mm-mm-mm. But you see what's happening, relatives. If you just keep paying attention and study the lines, you can see the alliances with different nations and different tribes happening. You can see the working relationships that's going on. I'm finna post the page to this article again, so anyone who coming in who wants to read it for themselves or have it, it's back there. Just post it again. No, Trap, you have to remember at this time, Britain wasn't even around when some of these wars. They found out what was going on over here from the Dutch, the Netherlands, France, and all that. They came a little bit later. Not as late as they want to tell you, but yeah, they came in later.
Yeah, because England becomes Britain
Yeah.
after there's an alliance with what is it? Scotland.
Scotland, yeah, Scotland and the other nations there, they all become one.
All right, so this is a lot of Indians already that were in this fight.
Yeah, because in 1675, they're just known as the New England Confederation. Because what it says, the New England Confederation was a short-lived military alliance of the English colonies of Massachusetts Bay, Plymouth, Connecticut, and New Haven formed in May 1643. I wonder why they started forming confederations. I said last on in this time frame is King William's War, 1688 to 1697. It states King William's War was the North American theater of the 9 Years' War, 1688 to 1697, also known as the War of the Grand Alliance or the War of the League of Augsburg. It was the first of six colonial wars fought between New France and New England along with their respective native allies before France. I got to blow it up a little bit more. It said wars, see, it was the first of six colonial wars. See the four French and Indian wars, Flanders, Real Rice, and fought between New France and New England along with the respective native allies before France ceded its remaining mainland territories in North America east of the Mississippi River in 1763. The parts, it was France, New France, the Wabanaki Confederation. It says the Wabanaki Confederation are a First Nations and Native American confederation of 5 principal nations: the Mi'kmaq, Melset, Passamaquoddy, Algonquin, and Pino. I can't see the end of that one. Okay, Penobscot, Pino, Penobscot, 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 however it's pronounced in there. It states, and they were fighting England, the Massachusetts Bay Colony, English America, and Iroquois Confederacy. English America, it states, English America included British Empire's colonial territories in North America, Bermuda, Central America, the Caribbean, and Guinea, Guiana from 1607 to 1783. The American colonies were formerly known as British America and the British West Indies before the 13 colonies declared their independence in the American Revolution of 1775 to 1783 and formed the United States of America. I guess that's a brief little thing on them. Who else was in here? We know about the Iroquois already. What it states on England at this time, it states the Kingdom of England, Anglo-Norman in France, Royaume d'Angleterre was a sovereign state of the island of Great Britain from 927 when it emerged from various Anglo-Saxon kingdoms until 1707 when it united with Scotland to form the Kingdom of Great Britain. Yeah, I think it was yesterday I was trying to remember what their original name was before.
Yeah.
The Royaume d'Angleterre was the name of it before it took on names that people know of it now. And I'm from Rudder had one more name before that after a person.
Yeah, Empress Copper's Fox. Yeah, they're all the same people, but our ancestors, some of our ancestors knew that, and some of them didn't, because all they're doing is just splitting up the tribes and splitting up the land,
Mm-hmm.
and taking the land by splitting up the tribes on the back end.
Because it's going into King Philip's War. Say for King Williams. For King William's War, neither England nor France thought of weakening their position in Europe to support the war effort in North America. See, they wasn't sending troops or nothing over here. They were just making their positions over there and having the Indians fight it. New France and the Wabanaki Confederacy were able to thwart New England expansion into Acadia, whose bordered New France defined as the Kennebec River in southern Maine. According to the terms of the 1697 Treaty of Ryswick that ended the 9 Years' War, the boundaries and outposts of New France, New England, New York remained subsequently unchanged. It states the war was largely caused by the fact that the treaties and the agreements that were reached at the end of King Philip's War in 1675 to 1678 were not adhered to. In addition, the English were alarmed that the Indians were receiving French or maybe Dutch aid. The Indians preyed on the English and their fears by making it look as though they were with the French. The French were played as well as they thought the Indians were working with the English. These occurrences, in addition to the fact that the English perceived the Indians as their subjects, despite the Indians' unwillingness to submit, eventually led to 2 conflicts, one of which was King William's War. Okay, then it said the English settlers for more than 154,000 at the beginning of the war, outnumbering the French 12 to 1. However, they were divided in multiple colonies along the Atlantic coast, which were unable to cooperate efficiently, and they were engulfed in the Glorious Revolution, creating tensions among the colonists. In addition, the English lacked military leadership and had a difficult relationship with their Iroquois allies. New France was divided into three entities: Acadia on the Atlantic coast, Canada along the St. Lawrence River and up the Great Lakes, and Louisiana from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico. Along the Mississippi River, the French population amounted to 14,000 in 1689. Although the French were vastly outnumbered, they were more politically unified and contained a disproportionate number of adult males with military backgrounds. Realizing their numerical inferiority, they developed good relationships with the indigenous people in order to multiply their forces and made effective use of hit and run tactics. Mm-mm-mm.
So Copper
Mind
Empress
blowing.
Fox. Yeah, Copper Empress Fox is like, so what? She says, how can you hear all this and remain calm? This is extreme betrayal. And she says, so
Oh,
if something should happen today, where do we start? Who should we trust? This is seriously a tricky one. Well, at the end of the day, which is the reason why we always tell people to go back to do your genealogy, because a lot of this
mm-hmm.
information your tribes already know and they're already aware of, and they are aware that they are suffering for these egregious acts,
Mm-hmm.
and they need our help. Well, the first thing we got to start is in the mirror and realize that the reason why we are where we are is because of what our ancestors did. And we got to accept
Mm-hmm.
responsibility and we got to fix it. Period, point blank in the discussion. Like I said earlier, we always want to claim how we're number one in something, but we never. But we always want to seem like it was somebody else's fault for committing the first sin or committing the first violent act or committing the first betrayal. If we were first in the great things, trust and believe we were first in the bad things. That's the
Mm-hmm.
first place we got to start.
Facts.
And if you're not willing to do that, you're gonna have a long road to hoe, and you gonna repeat the cycle. You've already been repeating the cycles within your families and their
Mm-hmm.
families. So you start with yourself. You start with your genealogy. You start with finding your tribe. You start with helping your tribe.
Mm-hmm. And Pamela Hall said something that is the lesson at hand that we must learn. That if our tribes would have put their differences aside with each other and work together, this never happens. It's because of, like I said before, that trait of jealousy and envy. This is allowed to happen because we look at each other and rather put each other down than look at each other to realize, you know what? Let's hold each other up. Yes, you might have a different dialect. Yes, you might like a different seasoning of spice, but we're from the same motherland. And me and Timmy said it before. We do not come out this situation by pointing the fingers at others. We come out this situation by being the adults in the conversation and taking responsibility for our own actions. And the only way that you can start doing that is doing your genealogy. Find out who your tribe is. Tie back into them tribes. Start learning this history so we can start fixing the mistakes of our past. Because if we don't fix the mistakes of our past, we don't have a future. We're still stuck in the same cycles. What we read this morning shouldn't be too hard to believe it went down that way because we see it happening in our communities every day. We see ourselves doing it to each other every day. Kind of funny, ain't nobody had to teach us these habits to hate each other. Could it be that they seen these natural distaste that we had for each other and just played on it?
It don't look like it took much.
Mm-mm. And I feel you, Copper. I mean, I feel you, Empress. But that's where we must be different, because other generations rather pass the buck and be like, could it be that we don't come out of this until we do that? If we are the first, we would have, like we say all the time, we were the first to commit the wrongs. So how can we now, knowing the responsibility that some of our ancestors did, still sit here and want somebody to fix something, to give something towards you when you're not even willing to stand up for the mistakes that you might be responsible for? Well, what Empress, you must love your own people, because it's the lack of love for one's people while we are in this situation today.
Exactly.
Because my brother is my brother regardless. And if I don't take care of my brother and make sure my brother is fed, clothed, and his family is housed properly, then my enemy is going to take care of my brother. Then if my enemy is feeding and taking care of my brother, can I hold it against my brother because now he's fighting against me because he has a family to take care of? When his own brothers and sisters put them out? I mean, these are the conversations that we have to start standing in the room and being honest with ourselves. Is that we neglected our own. And when I say we, I'm not meaning like us personally, but I'm saying we as our people neglected our people. And if you keep sitting here pushing your issues off on somebody else, saying you don't have the power to fix what's wrong in your personal life, guess what? Then continue being a slave, because you're giving power to somebody else. How are we going to say we're never slaves and we're no slave, but giving somebody else power to what we can fix in our own lives?
Copper Empress brought up a good question. She says the part that we gotta love our peoples, but do our peoples love us back? Betray our
You shouldn't be
betray our
worried
home.
about that. That's the part. See, if you're worried about somebody loving you back, then guess what? You're not doing it right. This unconditional love for our people is what, you get what I'm saying? When you love something unconditionally, do you worry about what it feels back? No, you just handle your responsibility, and what is going to be.
And if they don't, and if they're not doing what they're supposed to do, then you act accordingly. That doesn't. If someone hurts you, doesn't mean that you allow them to keep hurting. You do what you can, and then you move on. But if we don't try and we continue to pass the blame and pass the buck, then our children's children are going to be the ones dealing with the same problem. And think about how we're finding this information. Do you think it's going to be that easy for them to find the information? All the work that we did and all the work that has been done, if we don't get this right, our descendants are going to have
A harder
12
time than us.
a lot harder time finding this information out. By that time, by that time, you figure Martin Luther King would probably be a white man. Malcolm X would have never existed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All the Indians would have been European.
Mm-hmm. You see they doing it now.
And
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, we're our biggest enemy.
We are our enemies. When you look in the mirror, you're looking at your enemy. Your greatest enemy is you.
We gotta take
Think real quick,
responsibility.
Tiff. We got to get on code. And Michael Robinson said it, he said it better than I can ever said it. Is that facts? We left the tribes. The tribes didn't leave us, because the tribes are similar. Look at this, relatives. The tribes are in the same land that they've been in that we're reading about right now. So who left who again? Let's even be honest now. Most of us, before we came into this information, what kept us from coming into it? We didn't want to give up the so-called party life, the luxuries, the good times, the fast money, the chasing the bag. I gotta get it. Ooh, look at me. I mean, let's keep it real here. We are relatives here. This conversation with relatives. Why we can't see that we are the finances of our own demise. When we get together, can't nobody come do anything to us. The only way we get touched is we touching ourselves and allowing other people to come do it. Oh, such and such down the street, they just got some new property. I don't like that. I want that too. So I'm finna go out of my way to do something to ruin that for them. Come on, man. Y'all know what I'm talking about. No, David Corey, yes, some people didn't want to leave it, but we finna keep it 100 again. Let's be honest, relatives. Some people ran off of Indian land to get to them cities. Some people turned their back on their ancestors so fast.
Yeah, when integration came about and they were offering them government jobs in the 60s and 70s, a lot of people,
Yeah,
a lot
ran
of
to them.
children left the farms and their families were not able to pay the taxes on those farms. They lost those farms.
And that's how they lost them. Like I said, if we're gonna do, that's why we come here and say we bringing the hard hats, the shovels, backhoes, dump trucks, you name it. We're gonna dig it all up, and whatever we find, we're gonna face it. If it means that we did some grievous things, guess what? I'm gonna face it with my brothers and sisters because that's the only way we're gonna come out the other side to make sure this is here 7 generations down the line. And if you scared, get out of line. Yeah, David Corey, they don't want to leave because we even read earlier, there's some Indians that adopted to European lifestyle. See, Empress, the thing is, first, we must help ourselves. See, we have to stop waiting for somebody to come help us. If we ain't willing to stand up and dust ourselves off, to be like, okay, yeah, yeah, y'all got that. Okay, y'all got us. Yeah, for a couple of 100 years, y'all got us. But guess what? All right, game on. Let's go. That's what I'm talking about.
And and
It was,
and, and also too, I want to address this thing about being recognized. Okay, it's to a point where people aren't reading the laws and they're not following and understanding what it means when you make a declaration.
mm-hmm.
The reason why the United States ended up in a situation and there was a what they call a revolutionary war. Let's look at it for what history says. Seceded from the Union.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody know what that means to secede? They made a declaration to secede from the Union. Now, when you make a declaration to split from a nation, here's the thing that most people don't realize because they don't read. They claim to know the law, but they don't. When you
Don't know
make a
nothing.
declaration to split from a nation, you're not
Mm-hmm.
only splitting from that nation, you are
No.
also splitting from every country that they had a treaty with.
Because what is a treaty at the end of the day? That's their allies.
So if you say that you are a sovereign people and that you are splitting from a nation, that means you are also splitting from every treaty that they have ever signed and every ally that they have ever had. So
Without
when
yourself, without yourself going out making new treaties and parliaments and stuff with other nations, you just gonna cancel one.
so now you have to establish your own treaties with these individuals or with these nations and also start establishing embassies on their territory, like Benjamin Franklin did when the 13 colonies made their Declaration of Independence in 1776. People don't realize that Ben Franklin spent at least 20 some odd years outside the United States being, for lack of a better term, the Secretary of State in other countries. He lived there. He was politicking. He was
Mm-hmm.
building diplomatic relationships. So if you're going to declare that you sovereign, then you need to get your sovereign behind in one of these countries so they can recognize you. Because if they don't recognize you, then the United States don't have to do anything. And also too, with this A drip and this undrip, people not reading.
Read, people, please. It's fundamental.
There
Fundamental
are
to
there
read.
are 4 countries out of the 144 that even though they accept the undrip and A drip, what they state, and you can go look this up, is
Black and
that
white.
it is not legally binding.
No. ADRIP and UNDRIP is not legally binding. Can we please read thoroughly?
So if New Zealand, Australia, America, USA, and Canada, 2/3 of America, are saying that it is not legally binding, what are you going to do?
Absolutely nothing. And Empress, it's not about rising up tomorrow and things gonna change. Because yes, we're gonna rise up and things gonna go back just the way they was. The same situation that we did that put us back in this situation. See, the problem is, and I'm finna keep it honest, our people done got scared and lazy. That we're looking for the easy fix, the pill that you can take and instantly wake up and everything right. If these people took 200 years to sit here and plan and research and study, then we must be willing to do 200 years in return to get out of this mess. There is no quick fix, meaning that the work I do today, I wake up every rising knowing I may never see the fruits of this labor, but it doesn't matter to me because as long as I know that 7 generations from now, that our people will never forget, will never be put in this box again, then take my life now. That's what we fight for. I don't ever have to see a better day in my personal life. My children may never see a better day in their personal life. But as long as I know what we do today will save 7 generations down the line that I may never see, then let's fight. That's the real fight. Because these people fought for 200 years for ancestors that they didn't even know about. So we can be in the situation that we are in now. There is no easy way out. There is no shortcut home. We stand up and we face this as a people. No, there was never a time that we all got along. It was kumbaya. But we don't all need to get along for this to happen. We just have to agree to live righteously. That's it. And I'm not talking religious to this when I say righteously. By the laws of nature, we all know right and wrong. Don't nobody got to tell us. If we're
And
going to change and we're going to start, let's start finding out who we are. I'm going to say it again. There's no easy way out. There's no shortcut home. If you're not willing to stand on the line and do the work knowing that you might lose your life and you might not see anything in this, but generations down the line will be free, if that ain't what you signing up for, forget you know me.
at the end of the day, people are looking for land. They're looking for they're looking for something without having to do any work. Let's be honest. You're not going to be able to make a declaration and then all of a sudden, like magic, somebody gonna give you some land. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. Because if it would have happened, it would have happened a long time ago. All it's gonna do is get you put on a list so that you can be considered a terrorist, and they can send you to Ghana or somewhere else. Because when you make a declaration to separate, it's a declaration of war. Don't believe me?
Yes,
Read the laws.
read it for yourself. I'm going to tell my relatives again. I beg of you, read the Patriot Act. Be careful what you proclaim. Be careful what you stand and put your name on. They've been tracking this since 2008. They have agencies that sit here recording the conversations on it. They will put you as an extremist so fast, and you think you're going to have any rights to anything? People can lock you up and never give you a court date. See, can't we demand all our lands in this and do trust? See, these people that's telling y'all about trust, maybe they should have took the second year classes to tell you about antitrust laws. You can't take something like TMA say all the time. You're going to buy some land. You're going to put it in the trust. But now I found out that that land belongs to my tribe. Do you think because you put that in the trust that that's going to stop me from getting my land back? You are not the owner. It's illegal. Antitrust laws bust that up. 'Cause, 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 ' Yeah,
All I'm
Patrick
saying,
Gabriel. I had to borrow that from the Rocky soundtrack. Fair use, fair use.
at the end of the day, start researching what people are sending you.
Please. That's all we're saying. Just research it. Look into it for yourself. Take
Because
nobody's word.
the UNDRIP and the ADRIP, they have. I will agree. They are the four countries that were once opposed: America, United States, New Zealand, Australia, and Canada. Once said no. Now they say they support it, but it is not legally binding.
And anytime there's a but, it's never good.
And if you do any research on international law, it states that making a declaration does not hold weight in international law, not just U.S. law, international law.
International law.
Don't believe me? Go check it out.
Facts,
Every
LJ Free.
the end goal, Empress Copper Fox, is to number one, do your genealogy. Number two, find your tribe. Number three, utilize your skills sets that you have developed to help your tribe. Number four, make sure their bylaws and their constitutions are on point so that now they can operate and be sovereign.
Because people keep talking about being sovereign. Your tribes are sovereign. See, these skill sets that we possess, why are we not taking them back home? You notice everybody else come here, get a skill set, take it back to their original tribes. And I'm going to call them what they are because everybody got tribes. There's tribes outside of our landmass. They're sending their resources back to their tribes. They're putting their skill sets back to work for their tribes. We need to do the same thing.
Okay, you saying
Why
why
should
should
you
we
prove
prove
yourself?
ourselves to these creatures? We're not prove. Okay, let me
We
ask you
don't.
this question. Let me ask you this
Go
question.
ahead, TMH. Go
Let's be
in.
realistic. Let's be realistic. Let's be realistic. You keep saying why are we proving ourselves? First of all, proof is a concept. Proof is a construct. But at the end of the day, if you don't have anything that says you are who you are, where are you gonna go? You show me one tribe in the United States that has an army greater than the United States Army. I'll wait.
I'll wait for it. And the reason why you need to show who you are, I'm finna give it to you on street terms. Some of us look alike. And just because you look like me don't mean, yeah, I know conference you just asking, doesn't mean that you're me. You understand? How do you know what tribal lands belong to you if you don't know who you are? See, you're not proving yourself to nobody else. You finding out who you are. You have no idea who you are. You can be like you an Indian, but that's a broad brush. What tribe? What land? What language? What's your customs? What's your culture? And let's don't go for the thing, oh, I don't know, they erased it. No, because there's 504 tribes still in existence. Have we done our due diligence to find them, to reach out to them, to see what they can use? Or are we still sitting back with our hands open, wanting to get something? When are we going to start going to our tribes, offering them something? No, we're not coming with a handout. We coming with resources so we can get the numbers back up. We're reading in history that they use numbers to displace us. So wouldn't we need to put our numbers back to get back in place?
And also too, let's forget about proving something to the government. How about proving something to the tribes? Because I dare somebody, and I'm gonna put this dare out. I dare somebody to form their own tribe and walk on some other tribe's land and then tell them who they are and where they're from and see what happens.
Yeah, like you
I
like you
dare
gonna
you.
make them leave, and them people got historical records to that land. It does not work that way. See, I'm gonna say it again. That's the easy way out. That's the way that you take because you don't want to do no work.
Because people are making it seem like this is about the government. This ain't about the government. You got to realize there are already 500 some odd tribes. I dare one of these people who have already put together a tribe without tying themselves back to the land. Because what you're gonna find out if you actually talk to tribes, they already know who you are based off of your last name and the county that your people lived in. Put yourself a tribe together. Put your land in some trust. Go talk to one of these Indians and see what happens. You're gonna get embarrassed. This,
Yeah,
you won't even get past the state.
you won't. Because see, that's the thing you got to look at to where you saying, and I get where you're coming from, Empress. You know that. See, picture this: why we can't all tribes come together? Because this is the thing: if you don't do your genealogy, what tribe are you? You see what I'm saying? Again, you just can't false claim a tribe. And some of these tribes out here don't get along with other tribes. You could be around here claiming something, walking into one tribe, don't know you about to get your head took off. Because you could be claiming a tribe that sold this tribe out to the French or so. You must know thyself. Know thyself.
Big facts.
Is that at the end of the day, I hear what everybody's saying. Why we got to prove this and that? It's so simple. You're not proving it to them. You're proving it to the American Indian who you are. I need to know who you are. And I'll say that for myself. Yes, I need to know who you are.
And you keep saying, keep coming to our lands. Okay, well, here's a question. What lands are yours? Because as we're starting to see, these tribes are fighting for different lands. So what land is yours? And I'm not saying that to be funny. I'm saying that to be specific. What land is yours? Because I know the tribe that I come from, there is certain land in North Carolina. There's certain land in South Carolina. That's the only land I can lay claim to. I can't lay claim to California. I can't lay claim to New York. I can't lay claim to Florida. I can't lay claim to Georgia, but I can to North Carolina and South Carolina. So when you say our lands, okay, this your lands. What land did your tribe have? Because if you
What
can't answer
location?
that question, then you could just, if that's the case, if what you're saying is true, then you can actually come to my house and say, this is my land, get off my land.
And see, that's the problem there, Empress, not you, where you say, what if I don't want to be none of these tribes? Let me break this down for a second. How can we complain about the conditions of non-melanated people in our tribes, the tribes being European? Y'all want to know why that happens? For that same thought pattern there. Tribe chiefs are, how is the tribe chief put into power? Elected, right? How is the council put there? Elected, right? So if we're not going back to our tribes because of the pale skins that are there, who are they going to vote in? So if they're going to keep voting in Europeans, you really think you're ever going to see anything? It's a coward. We need to face this face to face. Why am I going to let a European scare me from going back to my tribe? I don't care if I'm the only melanated person there when I get there. Guess what? I'm going to get there and I'm going to help more of my melanated brothers and sisters find out who they are so we can start voting and put our people back where they need to be. You got to play the game if you want to win. Can't sit on the sideline and complain about how the game going. We got to get in. We got to get in the game. We keep saying start our own tribe and this and that. Why would we want to start something new if you could did your genealogy and you found that your grandmother's 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 tribe still here? Isn't that a slap to her face? Let's think about this. For all these people that keep saying, oh, go do your own thing. So how dare you claim respect of the ancestors? How dare you? See, I don't know how to sugarcoat it. I'm going to tell you what you are. Those are cowards.
All I got to say is this. Go to some of these reservations. Go to Catawba. Go to a Catawba reservation and tell them who you are, and then see what happens. Go to a Sapani reservation and tell them who you are, and see what happens. They're gonna ask you a couple of questions. Who's your last name? Where your people from? Because here's the thing: we are making this about the government. We're making this about the Congress and the House. It ain't never been about them. It's been about the tribes. You think about these wars were fought between Indians. This land was given away by Indians. This land was taken away from Indians by other Indians.
By Indians.
And it's still happening.
It's Indians that been taking the land from Indians. And even on that, Empress, where you say a lot of these tribes are not letting people in, because a lot of people going to these tribes taken. A lot of people don't know that there's the Creek Nation right now is suing. is being sued. They're the third nation. There's only 2 more left. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on that you have American Indians right now fighting over. We played it live when it was on the Congress floor arguing with the fight wars. But guess what? Them so-called people that got labeled as freedmen's, they got their genealogy and their paperwork to show who they are. You see how that works now? So you don't have to, you can be like, oh, I don't want you here, da 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 da. I got my paperwork. I'm tied in. This is who I am, and you can't take that away from me. And I'm going to say it again. If enough of us keep showing up, if enough of us start doing this, like Pamela Hall said earlier, imagine just 200,000 of us doing genealogy. Do you imagine the conversations, the questions, and answers that come up out of that? That's just 200,000 people doing genealogy. A lot can be accomplished. But that's what they mean, sacrificing, putting things aside. The real sacrifice. Where you sacrifice your enjoyment, your pastime, your peace of mind to make sure generations you may never see would know who they are and would never forget.
Here's a question I'm going to ask for those that are claiming sovereignty, want to be a sovereign nation, and are not tying back into the land. How are you going to address that when you purchase this land from either commercial real estate or via residential real estate, and you already know that it's stolen land, you then put it into a trust. Someone does their genealogy, come to find out that that land belongs to their 4th generation grandmother. They have a copy of the deed. They have a copy of the land trust. Now, you paid for this land. You think you're going to get to keep it because it's in a trust? I'll wait. Tell me how you're going to resolve that. Tell me how you being sovereign is going to keep an Indian who's tied to their land and has a land trust from taking that land back from you, or the government from giving it back to you. I'll wait, because if you can address that, then we can have a conversation. Until you can address that, I don't want to hear it. Because you talk this big game, but you don't want to address the facts. You are not going to go and take somebody's land and then don't think that you're not going to be receiving any retribution. I promise.
And if we're talking about doing that, what are we crying for that we don't have our land if all we saying, oh, we finna go take somebody's land? We ain't finna do no research. We ain't gonna do no homework. I just want that. I'm finna go take that. Then you are the colonizer. You are the colonizer. I posted the article in there dealing with Creek Freeman suing. Can you go to the Vatican and make some demands? You can go there and make all the demands you want, but who are you again? See, people keep crying about going to these European countries trying to get something back. Some of y'all gonna do your research and find out that your tribe willingly sold their land to them. Then what? Then what you gonna say? You come from a tribe that sold their land to France. What you gonna say? What demands do you have now? That's what I mean. How can you stand and argue if you don't know what you're even arguing? How can we stand and do that if we don't? I mean, come on, let's be realistic. If you steal my car and I see my car 4 houses down, can I go get that car? Or am I going to need some paperwork to prove that's my car? And I hear you. Okay, others came and took the land. You don't know who took the land, because we read this morning that tribes were selling land to France and Spain and Netherlands. Indians were working with them. So who stole the land again? I'm asking that. If Indians work with them and the Indians were killing off other Indians and enslaving Indians, who sold the land? So this argument of saying taking something back, who you taking something back from?
So she's saying that she knows that, but now she clearly see that most of our people is a major sellout. You got to realize it was a situation to where they felt hopeless. Again,
Hmm.
we have to be righteous judges, and we have to look at it for what it is. I mean, if you see again, there's always a remnant of people that want to do the right thing, but for the most part, most people didn't do the right thing.
Yeah.
We have the opportunity to fix that.
Big facts.
We have the opportunity to fix that, because at the end of the day, just like our ancestors who were aware of this, who could have fixed it maybe in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, that didn't because of integration, they
Hmm.
left it for us to fix. Now, here's a more important
Exactly.
question: do you want to leave it to your fourth generation children to fix it, or do you want to fix it?
Exactly.
I'm
Keep handing it down.
I'm like, oh, Cliff, I don't blame my ancestors because I wasn't there. I don't know. Yes, true indeed, it was a choice, but I don't know what their other options was. And I know they did the best thing that they thought they were doing at the time.
You got to memorize that the Second Amendment was passed in 1791, 1 year after the census was put out. So
So
then
who
you
do you
had
think that's about?
militias taking people off their land. Now they had guns. She
See,
said, "So
that's
how
the
long is
thing.
it gonna take to be
That's the
fixed?"
thing. However long it takes, Empress. I understand how it is that we've been through a lot. We've been through a lot. But think about our ancestors that's still around us. That's in their 80s, their 90s, and their hundreds. How do you think they feel? The burden that they carried. I mean, if we want to do this right, then we don't rush. So if it means I must suffer the rest of my lifetime to make sure it's right 7 generations down, then bring the pain.
and
Bring it.
you asking some very good questions. You're making some very valid points. So don't
Yes,
stop
yes,
with it.
you are. Yeah, please don't stop. Yes, you are. This is active conversation is rising.
But again, it all boils down to what are we doing individually. You can only do what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Are you? And I'm not insinuating. No, I'm not making claims. It's just a question. Are you not only doing your genealogy, but are you having conversations with people to find out what tribes they belong to and what they know and helping them out? Because what you'll find is as you help them, you'll help yourself. As you grow, they'll grow. And what you'll find is that things will happen a lot faster and come a lot easier. I think one of the biggest problems is, and this is just my observation, and I could be wrong, this won't be the first time or the last time, but
Mm-hmm.
because we've been so focused on trying to make these declarations and get this land and focus on what we can get, we're forgetting about our neighbors to the left, our neighbors to the right. We're forgetting about our communities. We're forgetting about the people in our own neighborhoods that don't even know who their third generation grandma is.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about land somewhere in Nebraska, and we're not even paying attention to where we're at right now. What about all the people that look like you that live by you?
Mm-hmm.
Have you talked to them? Have you helped them out? Have you even asked them about their ancestry or if they got any in their family? And if they do, what tribe? What you may find is that by helping them, you may end up finding out who one of your ancestors are. They may be related to you.
Well, you said how do these tribes feel about all this mess? Well, this is the thing you have to remember. You had the 5 civilized tribes that if you do enough digging, you're gonna realize these 5 so-called civilized tribes had their hands in a lot of the relationships with the colonizers. You know? And then a lot of the tribes today are dying off because we're not doing our part. It's a numbers game at the end of the day. And that's why I say it passionately again. Why start a new tribe? If you're really about saving the American Indian, protecting the Aboriginal, then we don't start new tribes. You find the tribes that you belong to. These melanated tribes, these 504 melanated tribes, you find them. And if you're a part of them, you start tying in. And like we said, you help more people tie in, whatever your skill set is, take to these tribes. We all have a responsibility. We all come from a tribe. When are you going to pick up your tribal responsibilities? We keep hollering that we're a nation, that we love our people, but talk is cheap. When are we going to stand up and let our actions show? When are we gonna start taking care of our elders, our young? I'm not talking about the individuals that do it. I mean, as tribes. Yes, Oak Cliff Tiff, because they couldn't talk the Indian talk, but they gave their tongues so we can talk today.
I'm just trying to figure out how you going to declare your independence and then take somebody else's land.
Yeah, people really need to think that out. You really need to think that out.
You're going to put somebody else's land in a trust and then think you're going to keep it because it's in a trust. But you're going to separate from the entity that you got land from, which basically means you're no longer protected. Now is not only an act of war against the United States, it's an act of war against all of the nations in the United States that they signed treaties with, because you're not just breaking their contract, you're breaking all contracts.
Bingo.
People claiming that they know the laws and they're reading, well, apparently there's some laws they're not reading.
Mm-hmm. And the surprising thing that people will find out too, if you do your family history, you're going to find out a lot of our families still own their land.
Mm-hmm.
That ain't nothing that's rare. A lot of our families still own their land. I think I done found like 3-4 different deeds for all over Alabama and Carolina. But it's
So
about. Oh, go ahead, TMH. I'm sorry.
So again, if that's the case, and these so-called sovereign nations who are forming their own tribes and not tying into any existing tribes where they're namesakes, they're coming up with these, well, we a family, we just gonna create our own tribe. You're gonna get somebody else's land and don't think you're gonna get kicked off of it. Okay, keep dreaming.
I mean, under that notion, look at it this way. If you let under that premise there, that means I can come to your house and tell you you're gonna stay in your bedroom because I'm claiming it.
Make a declaration. Go claim
And
the land.
I'm gonna claim your house. No, I don't want the land. I'm finna see all these people that think this work. I'm asking them, listen, let me write one, and I'm gonna claim part of your house.
Because your
Let's
house
see
is
how far
sitting
they
on
go.
indigenous land, and I'm indigenous. So now what?
By me even saying that, that lets you know how far that ain't gonna work. You know what I'm saying? I wish somebody would. So if it ain't gonna work on the individual level, I don't know how you're gonna go to a whole tribe and think you're gonna make them get up and go somewhere. Y'all seen that Viking commercial? Man, looking like a walking pincushion.
And again, the ADRIP and the UNDRIP is supported by all 154 countries that signed, but 4 countries, United States, New Zealand, Australia, and Canada, say it is not legally binding. So if it's not legally binding, how in the world are you going to demand that you're going to be able to get some land, put it in the trust, and keep it when it's not legally binding? So you
And
talk
what?
about, go ahead.
And what's the name of the country we live in now? What they named this country? America, right? And they the main ones that said it ain't legally binding, right? So if America telling you it's not legally binding, they're telling you it's not legally binding. Ooh, this is gonna be interesting.
My question is what relationships have they developed with these countries that have treaties with the United States?
Mm-hmm.
What
Because they
ambassadorships have you set up? What embassies have you set up? Have you gone over to these other countries and set up some diplomatic relationships? I'll wait.
And to put it in street terms again, the moment you call yourself breaking away from the United States government, every ally of the U.S. is your enemy now. Let's make sure you understand this. Every U.S. ally, the moment you call you, and the moment you call yourself doing it, you have no treaties with none of these nations. No embassies, no parliaments, nothing.
And please, whatever you do, please do not do this. Please do not reach out to a country that is a known enemy of the United States. Please don't do that.
I'm going to tell relatives
Please.
again. Look at them countries on that Patriot Act. Contact one of them if you want to. You wonder why ain't no walls on your house no more, nothing but doors and window frames.
So all I'm saying is do your research, research the laws, look at what's
Please
being
do.
accepted. If you're going to acclaim, if you're going to make these declarations, make sure you know how to properly do it. Make sure you know that when you break these treaties, you have to go form your own treaties so you could be recognized. When the United States separated from Britain, the first country that they went to be recognized by was France. Then it was the Netherlands. Then it was Morocco. There was an argument between whether it was Morocco, then the Netherlands, and then the Netherlands, and then Morocco. Once a country recognizes you and they sign a treaty with you and you have a diplomatic relationship, then you have some legs to stand on. Until then, you don't have any legs to stand on.
So what foreign nationals y'all have? What's in your wallet?
See, because now we're not talking about the United States jurisdiction. Now we're talking about diplomatic relationships in the UN. So you can go somewhere with that, the jurisdiction of the United States. What about international law? What about that? What relationships have you built with France? What relationships have you built with Spain? What treaties have you signed with them? I'll wait.
What nations you are allied with that produce particular resources and infrastructure that you're going to need? Because right now you said you're breaking away from the U.S. So you have to get all that on your own. It might sound simple, but you talking about just the ability to have fresh, clean water, sewage, garbage disposal, simple everyday things. Where you gonna dump this stuff at? Where you gonna process it at? Matter of fact, where you gonna get your food and stuff from? Because you talking about getting land, who you trading with? You definitely ain't getting no goods sent in here with no country America isn't friendly with. What if they decide to put a no-fly zone? You put your land right in the middle. Let's hypothetical. You get your land that's in the middle. They say a no-fly zone. How you gonna get supplies or anything? Even though it won't make it that far, you know what I'm saying? I'm just throwing these things out here for people to start looking at it realistically. Didn't they lock Cuba down by trade embargoes and stuff? Right? Don't they lock down so-called third world countries with trade embargoes and starve them out?
Cliff Tiff said, "Oh, they could just murk you and harvest your orchids."
Mm-hmm. I mean, come on, let's start being realistic. Let's turn the TVs off. Let's walk away from the movie theaters. You know what I'm saying? Get away from that Hollywood nonsense. Because if they can lock down full countries,
That are not tied to this landmass.
full countries get embargoes on. What little you gonna do? And I'm not saying it as a scared thing. No, I'm telling you, you have to do this smart. No, not really, Empress. A third world country isn't an illusion. Third world country is the status you get from your goods that you have to trade in and out, import, exports. It has to do with commerce and business. So when they say first world, second world, third world, yes, it really does have a meaning, people. It really does have a meaning.
Here's a question I want to ask people. How many people have actually been outside the United States? How many people
I'll
actually
wait.
have How many people actually have relationships with people in other countries and actually talk to them? How many people have actually been outside the state that they live in?
Mm-hmm. Seen the world outside of America. Have passports that stamp. I mean, really, and not saying this to be funny, because you have a lot of people that's trying to tell you how the world is and haven't even been out their own backyard. I mean, we have to start being realistic and honest. If you're watching the U.S. shut down whole countries from trading, from going anywhere, what are you gonna do? Besides setting our younger generation up to get killed. No, the reason why they say Jamaica is a first world country, then it can be a second or third, is because of what the country supply. Who does Jamaica have relations with? Who do they have deals with? You get what I'm saying? At one time they didn't. Then as they started getting produce and started having trade and their own commerce, then your status changed. It's just a ranking. It's a world ranking status when it comes to credit of that country. First world countries got top line credit. Second ones are all right. Third ones, you get what I'm saying, iffy. But what I'm saying, people don't know until you start going out and doing business in other countries, having businesses and projects going on. You'll realize how the world really works.
At the end of the day, this is what I'm gonna say. Somebody that is well versed in the sovereign movement, A-drip and undrip, riddle me this. You purchase land from a commercial realtor or from a residential realtor, which is basically stolen, that you said is stolen, because we all indigenous, so that means we all have land. You put that land in a trust. I come and find out that my family has land that you now have in a trust. I have the land deed saying that my fourth generation grandma owned it and it was taken from her. Who gonna get that land? I'll wait. Because you bought stolen property. And you separated from the United States government.
Facts. And see, and these are the things that we have to, I'm going to say it like this. We need to check our emotions. Our problem as a people, we come to these discussions emotional. Emotions ain't going to get us nowhere. Nowhere but stuck in this crap for another 100 years. We have to be realistic and honest. And what I don't understand is, why are we afraid to work? Why do we think we can sit behind a computer screen and just hit a button and it's going to fix everything? No, we got to get out here. How are we going to say that you want something back? How many people in your neighborhood even know that you're an American Indian? How many people in your neighborhood you know that if they're American Indians or their tribes? I'm saying it again. I'm checking myself and everybody. Let's stop the BS. Because if where you live, if they don't know you're an American Indian, what are you really trying to change? If your family members don't know what you're standing up for and what you're willing to fight for, what are you really doing? I'm finna say it again. If where you live, nobody knows that you're an Indian and what you stand for.
Now, how you gonna make a declaration? Because when you make a declaration, that declaration needs to be made wherever you are. Clear, point blank in the discussion. It's not just a declaration on the internet. It's a declaration everywhere. Everywhere you
Mm-hmm.
are, you're supposed to make that declaration.
Everywhere. And that's all we saying on that is that no, it's not that. It's that we are emotional because we wait for somebody to do something. It's like right now, we're pointing the fingers that, oh, somebody took this from me. Somebody took that from me. They took my land. They took this. They took that. To me, it sounds like false claims if you're not doing the work to prove that it's yours. I'm finna say it again. Somebody steal your automobile. Car 4 houses down look like yours. Can you go down there and just take that car? Or you're going to have paperwork to prove you're the owner. Let's don't get quiet now. I'm asking the chat. My car is stolen. It's found 4 houses down. Can I just go snatch that car back and there's no repercussions, or must I have the paperwork to prove it's my automobile? Because for everybody who's saying that, you better never call nobody when somebody steals something from you. You get what I'm saying? Facts, David Core. You said it better than I can say. In other words, your family got land, but what are you doing? And I'm gonna even say it like this: your so-called family, because if you haven't did the genealogy to tie back into your family, that's your so-called family.
That's like going to a family reunion, claiming you part of them, but you can't tell them how you tie into that family reunion and think you're gonna get a plate of food.
Man, if you don't get your hungry butt out of here.
When you say these people, what people are you talking about? Because we're talking about tying back into your tribe. We're not talking about going back to the government. We're talking about tying back into your tribe.
That's all we're talking about. We're talking about going to what was here before us, getting back on code. Yes, Oak Cliff Tiff, we're waking up the babies. They're the ones that's gonna hear this. They're the ones that's from 20, 30 years from now that can still hear this and remember. And then they'll rally them to keep fighting. Yes, find your tribe and vibe with them. And I don't mean just find your tribe by name. Find your tribe. Know who they are. Know their lifestyles. Know their traveling and migration patterns. David Corey said, yeah, they'll give you a plate, but they're going to tell you, don't be in here acting stupid. We don't know you.
And if at the end of the day, if people really believe that they're indigenous to this land, why are you asking for civil rights? You only ask for civil rights if you're a citizen.
Me no citizen. Keep your civil rights.
Civil rights are used for second-class citizens, not first-class citizens, because if you were here first, you don't need civil rights.
You don't need civil rights because you were here first. And on that note, we went, ooh, we must have been feeling it this rising. Went a whole hour and 10 over.
That's your fault. Now we're gonna blame no sellout.
What? Wait a minute. I'm just here vibing out. Y'all are just killing it right now. I mean, you're answering some questions that a lot of people probably have or have had. Or maybe didn't even have that question, but thought they knew something. But don't take every word that these brothers are telling y'all. Look it up. I like what TMH always says. Prove to me otherwise. And that's when he could be proven wrong. I mean,
Empress,
I
have a
haven't
question.
seen.
You said,
Go,
oh, sorry,
go,
what she said,
go,
I ain't asking. She said, I ain't asking, I'm taking what's mine. They don't own it. How do you know it's yours? What you claiming to be yours could be mine.
Facts. Now that's
That's
where
all we're
genealogy
saying.
comes in. Just tie
If you don't
yourself into
find
your
it,
tribe.
yeah.
Find yourself.
So now what you claiming belongs to me, I'm supposed to let you take what's mine? Think about this now. This is all we're saying. People are trying to claim things with no ownership, don't even know who they are. Now, I done did my due diligence. You're squatting on my land. So I'm supposed to let you stay there because you want to self-identify as an American Indian.
Halfway. That ain't even all the way. You gotta get it done. You gotta get it done. That's what I
See,
mean.
Empress, this is the thing where you say not everyone has access to the internet, true. But if you have access to the internet, or you have people that do have access to the internet, that's where we as a community work together. Because I know this for a fact. I know there's a couple of us that have ancestry accounts that pay for multiple people to use. And Empress, I can tell you back in Jamaica, couple of well on the panel they know. I'm working with a couple of Jamaicans doing the same thing. Doing the same thing, genealogy in Jamaica. You know, you're probably familiar with Nigel Blair. So even back in Jamaica, Aboriginals are learning out who they are. And a lot of them got it a lot more easier because of the church records are easier for them to have access to.
You're not gonna get all the truth on the internet. You're gonna have to go to physical buildings, like Copy Indio did.
Facts.
Mm-hmm. That we got to be willing to do the work. That's what I'm talking about, Braveheart. That's the same thing that we do. Because how are we going to sit here and say we love our ancestors, we love our people, but we can't even come together to help each other do genealogy? But then we want to make declarations for land and this and that. That definitely is backwards. Just going to create the Wild Wild West all over again.
Yeah, because like I tell you, you come on some tribal land if you want to, and think you're gonna and think you're gonna take some land, or your land is buttressed up against some tribal land, and then the process of getting the land rights, you gonna lose that land. I
Oh no,
promise you
David.
that.
Oh, that's my sister. Empress, we go back. Yeah. No, we just having a conversation, you know? And like I said, these conversations are needed because it gives people different ways of looking at the situation. It gives people the time to sit down and really investigate what's at stake.
And we understand your what you're saying, Empress Copper Fox. Patience has run way past then, but at the end of the day, patience is what allowed us to lose this land.
Mm-hmm. Because we didn't have patience. We didn't want to wait. So we rushed and we sold it.
We
We got
made
to
a,
correct the mistakes.
we made allegiances with people who had been here in our tribes, learning our ways and usurping us. So if we're not willing to exercise the patience, then we're going to continue the cycle. I mean, it's a hard pill to swallow, but we got to deal with it.
Yeah, make no mistake about it. We do not sit here like we are the know-it-all, be-all when it comes to the American Indian. No, we're not. We're just trying to have a dialogue. We're trying to address the elephant in the room, the real conversations that people been avoiding. You know, and that's all we're trying to do. And we always state, if you find information and research that knocks what we're saying, adds on to what we're saying, bring it, because we're all here to learn.
Exactly. This channel is put together for everybody. This is our channel. This is y'all's channel. This is everybody's channel.
Mm-hmm. Our platform. Y'all done heard it before. This is the platform to where the American Indian can come and we can sit down, share this information, grow together so we can move as a unit. I feel you, Empress. She ready to go. But that's where you have to realize maybe that's the part that you have to master is patience. We all have different traits that got the best of us. And on this site and this time around, we have to fix it. We have to fix these parts in us so we can be stronger for tomorrow. And we say it all the time. If these colonizers waited 200 years to strike, if they sat down, lived among us, watched, studied, wrote down for 200 years, we must be willing to do the same. Because if you don't know your opponent, if you really don't know your opponent, how you gonna fight? You don't know their strategies. You don't know how they go about it. Their weakness. Yes, there are people that suffering now. Then we help our people that suffering now.
Here's a $1 million question. The people that don't know that they have Indian in their family, how is claiming sovereignty, taking some land that don't belong to you, going to help them? How's that going to help them today?
It's not. It's just gonna get them a charge for the future. See, we're talking realistic solutions that can be applied. That the everyday American Indian family can take these things and apply it to go down the road of becoming self-sufficient. And like I said, Empress, trust me, me and you had long conversations on them early rises and nights. I know the feeling.
But
And like David Corey said, we have to know our land. Not nobody else telling us the history of our land. Each individual should know his land.
because we are the land, so we got to know it. If we don't know it, then how are we going to tell somebody?
Mm-hmm. Well, see, Braveheart, the thing is, the pop off don't even have to be what people think it is. If let's say if we can get half of us to do genealogy and tie back in to our tribes, what bloodshed is going to be now? Because the thing y'all have to realize, how are these people? How are these people getting into power? They are voting. They're using our ancestors' system to keep us out because we're not trying to play the game. See, this whole government is our ancestors' government that they just put theirs on top of it. That's why I get mad when people tell us I'm run away from the government. I'll never run away from my ancestors. We must learn law. We must learn politics. How you gonna tell me late 1800s our ancestors dominated the system so bad they had to put hits on them? Now we scared to learn politics and law now? I mean, let's think. We seen the baseball cards with the hits out for Aboriginal politicians. We were everywhere. Early 1900s, bankers, financial institutions, so-called Black Wall Street. Exactly, Golden Moon. We're agreeing with it with the voting system. Everything that we going on now through the voting system, we're agreeing to have it done to us. All I'm saying is let's take our rightful place and start putting our vote where it matters for it to stop happening to us.
Well, first of all, there's many of us claiming the wrong name. That's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing is there's not enough of us doing their genealogy to find out where they come from. Because once you do that, there's going to be a lot of doors that open for you. That's what people fail to realize. And as you start to connect with people and help those people, then you never know who you're going to connect with, who could have some influence, who could have some pull, who could have some insight, who could help. But as long as we stay secret Indians, then you ain't gonna never know. You never know who you'll be able to affect.
That's a fact.
Yeah, I feel you, Braveheart. Braveheart, Alabama, Mobile. What's up, folks out there? Love my people. Um, but yeah, but that's natural to have survival skills. You know what I'm saying? But I wouldn't say sit back and talk militia and all that because doing that, that's gonna put you on the extremist list. You know, like Oak Cliff said, genealogy is the key. It's a journey. Oh, Montgomery, Alabama, that's what's up. Like I said, another great Grand Rising show. I guess we'll be coming back tomorrow because on the Indian Wars, we're just getting warmed up. We still got the 18th centuries to do, 19th century to do, all the way up to the 20th century. So that'll be very, very, very interesting. Some more things to start pointing out and digging out. Facts, Oak Cliff Tiff, no way around genealogy. You was gonna say something, TMH?
Just wanted to become Braveheart. He said, not militia, armed Indians. Ain't nothing wrong with being an armed Indian. Just make sure
Yeah.
that you're also arming yourself with information and you're arming people with information as well. Because at the end of the day, we we have to be very careful about how we move because we can get emotional, and then those emotions can get you hemmed up and get you put in a situation to where I don't care how armed you are, you won't have more. You don't have more soldiers and more weapons in the military. I promise you. I was in the military. I promise you, you don't.
And we not saying this to tell people to be afraid. We saying, come on, let's use common sense. They got bunker bombs. They'll drop on your whole little house. What you gonna do then? Besides signing up young Aboriginal men and women to throw their life away recklessly, when we can take the time out to teach our young Aboriginal men and women how to do genealogy, we can
And make
teach
these
them,
moves.
how to make these moves to where we can build our nations back. That's how we should do it. Because for years of us and people getting us emotionally riled up, sending us out there to the streets to get shot down for what? For what? Like I said, why are we talking fighting? How many of us are teaching the younger generation how to fish, how to farm, how to make clothes? I mean, come on, let's be realistic. How many, we talk about this all the time, how many Aboriginal farms there are? How many Aboriginal owned water plants there are? Matter of fact, how many Aboriginal owned infrastructures that there are? I mean, what do we think? Facts, Oak Cliff Tiff. Connect to your tribe. That's your army. I don't understand why are we running from who we are? Why?
Has anybody tied back into their tribe in the chat? Anybody successfully working on that?
What do you mean? You said
Get
being tied back into it. I have.
There you go.
Okay, there we go. So that's
Yeah,
what I'm saying. Like that's I don't know. It's a lot of strategies. A lot of strategies out there. It seems a lot of people maybe agreeing or partly agreeing and disagreeing with how to go about. I mean, actually, I don't know what angle they have, but you know, if you just trying to see if they have any other solutions
But,
other than tying it into your tribe first.
hold on for a second. No, Salah Empress. You say some tribes don't want us. Is that your personal statement, or can you can't go out for a fact to say that? You're
Yeah,
just
Creek Nation
regurgitating
is
what
being
people
sued right
saying.
now anyway.
You
Even
get what I'm saying?
if that is a fact.
That some tribes don't want us. How do you know that's your tribe that don't want you? We must stop this. How can we sit here, make proclamations and say who don't want us and who do want us if we're not even trying to connect back to the tribes? That's what we're saying. There's a lot of misinformation. But how many of these people that's giving you this information really deal with tribes? How many of them are really talking to chiefs? How many of them really are doing their homework to even know their tribe or talk to their tribal members?
Mm-hmm.
See, that's what we're saying, Empress, is that a lot of people that's giving people this information, you need to start checking them. David Corey, how do you connect back? By doing your genealogy. Once you do your genealogy, you're going to start finding the area that them tribes and stuff were in, the migration patterns. Then what you do is once you see the tribes that's in them areas, all nations have applications for you to send in to get your genealogy done. See, this is the part that I'm saying. They all have websites where you can download the application and do it online to send it in. Yes, there's a lot of misinformation out there. People telling you that you can't do this and can't do that and haven't even did it themselves.
And also, too, if you're talking to a chief, the number one thing I would ask a chief is, are they tied back into their tribe? Because there are a lot of people claiming to be chiefs that are not chiefs.
Are not real chiefs.
I would ask them for a copy of their constitution. I would ask them for a copy of their bylaws. I would ask, who sits on their council. How do they vote?
Mm-hmm. And then Empress, where you saying it again, some tribes do reject peoples. But is that your personal experience? I'm finna say it again, Empress. Stating that some tribes reject people. Is that your personal experience? That's somebody else regurgitating things. So if you haven't been through it yourself, how can you make that statement? If you haven't reached out to a tribe and that tribe told you directly no, how can you make that statement? See, it's so easy to make excuses not to do the work, to be like, oh, we can fight and get our way out. You know why people be hollering fight, fight? But that's what I'm saying, Empress. You were told by others. You were told by others. See the same thing what I'm saying? You were told by others just like others told you, you Jamaican, that you a slave, that you came from Africa. Now you understand what I'm saying? If we're not going to accept nobody telling us anything, we're going to research and find out for ourselves. That means everything. Don't let nobody tell you that. I even tell you what I'm telling you right now, research. That's why we keep putting the links up there so people can read it for themselves. DNA, I wouldn't suggest DNA to nobody. And you don't have to take our word for it. Just go to your local DNA site, look in the disclaimers, and it's going to tell you for entertainment purposes only and can't be used in the court of law.
And
Now, if you still,
they've already admitted that they're giving your information to third party entities.
yeah. So now if you still want to do DNA after it tells you all that on the website, be my guest. To each their own. I'm just telling you it states entertainment purposes only.
What do the tribes? What is their stance on DNA?
Tribes don't accept DNA tests.
They don't accept. No tribe accept DNA.
The government doesn't even accept DNA except for paternity tests. And in a paternity
That's
test,
it.
you need the DNA from one parent. In order for me and my brother to prove we're related, we have to have the DNA from either our mother or our father.
They can't do it just off of having his and his brother DNA.
So there has to be a joining combination, somebody that we have in common in order for them to prove that we are who we are. So it's not just like me being at the scene of a crime. I left my blood or some fluid, and they took my DNA and found out that I was there. It's not like being at the scene of a crime. You're connecting people to a landmass. You cannot connect people to a landmass with DNA, unless you go to the landmass, dig up them people, and do that, and then test their DNA with everybody that was over here. That's the only way it's going to work.
Because I'm going to say it like this. I done said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I have a daughter that was born in Florida. I have a son that was born in Georgia. So by this premise, what they telling me is, listen carefully, relatives. If I was to do their test, one of their tests going to say Georgia, the other one going to say Florida. Think about it now. We all have children and relatives that's born in different states, different cities. Now, if you was to take a DNA test, is it going to tell you where they come from? Is my son's DNA test going to say hospital such and such, location, area? No. So why would you accept something that's pointing you to Africa someplace and not a person?
And even if that's the case, if our ancestors have been here for 200 to 400 years, if we were slaves, then why doesn't it come back that you have a certain percentage of American? All of them are just tying you directly to West Africa. No parts of America.
Where's that DNA at?
To address the elephant in the room, they say all life starts out of Africa, right? So why all DNA don't go back there? I'll wait.
All of.
That means everybody tests should say African. Everybody.
Ain't there some so-called African Americans that have zero African DNA, and some of their tests that they get? I think I've seen some reaction videos.
There have been people that have put their dog's DNA in the test and come back the dog from Africa. Come on, man.
Mm-hmm.
There have been twins that have taken tests and they said they're from two separate continents.
Mm-hmm.
So again, there were lawsuits that were made against these companies, and they paid out a lot of money. And then Congress made it illegal for you to sue them because now on the boxes of these DNA tests it says for entertainment purposes only. So if you take the test and you expect to get anything other than entertained, then that's your fault.
Matter of fact, is Oprah still in the U.S.?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just asking because they tried to tell Oprah that she was
She
Zulu
is
for so
Zulu.
long. She ain't relocate over there yet, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, she said she was not. She saw them cracking jokes on her. A PR person was like, "Oh man." She's Zulu. But now, does anybody disagree with the DNA? I'm not reading the chat. I'm traveling right now. I'm driving.
I mean, the majority of people who have been doing studies on Indian heritage and things of that nature, they're familiar with the stories and the backdrop for DNA. When we say genealogy, we talking about your family tree. Maybe that's what we should stop saying. Start saying it's family tree,
What
because people associate genealogy with DNA, and that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, no, that's two different things. Genealogy is the study of one's lineage through paper trails, death certificates, birth certificates, court
draft?
documents, indeeds,
Draft card.
draft cards, tax records. It's all documented paperwork. Is how you're finding your people, tracing them back.
And I did my genealogy, and don't nobody in my family go back to Africa. All of them are from North Carolina and South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Wayne County, specifically on my mother's side, and Caswell County, specifically on my father's side. And last time I checked, those counties were in the United States and not in Africa.
Mm-hmm. Nowadays, Corey, you can't lie about that genealogy. Genealogy. Yeah, them DNA tests have you looking crazy as hell. Have you all type of confused. Be like, maybe I am African. Ain't never been there a day in your life.
And if you talk to the tribes, if you talk to some real tribes, they'll tell you they don't even give their DNA to be
Nope.
tested. So if they're not putting their DNA in the DNA samples, then how you ever gonna tie back to a tribe when they're not even participating? I'll wait.
Yes, Empress Copper Fox, Europe is North Africa. Listen, in the census, they let us know that.
Talking about the. She was looking at the origin.
Yeah, when they were saying the South, remember when they were like South part of Africa, West part of Africa, when it was letting you know what them people are marked down is on the census. When they were letting you know the Middle East or Africa and all that, them people get marked down as white on their status. I guess on that note, like I said, been another great Grand Rising show. Any last closing remarks? No sellout, TMH?
Do your family tree. Find out who your tribe is. Go to that tribe, submit your paperwork, tell them what skill sets you have so that you could be an asset, not a liability, and help your tribe generate income so they can not have to depend on federal subsidies. That's all I got.
Any closing remarks from you, no sellout?
No, that was great. Amazing information from y'all. Appreciate that. Everybody's kind of on the same page. If anybody has any questions, you can definitely email us at autochthonousassembly@gmail.com, so we can keep this going, especially if you have questions. So, but yeah, no, I appreciate y'all for today.
And on that note, like TMA said, do your family tree, do your genealogy. Let's start tying back into who we are. Because if we really want to make a difference, we have to know ourselves first. We have to start taking acceptance for the wrongs that we have done. We have to start correcting the mistakes so moving forward they don't happen again. And remember why we're doing this. That for 7 generations plus, to never forget, to never have to go through this again. And on that note, it's been another great Grand Rising. Look forward to kicking it with the relatives tomorrow Rising show. Until then, peace.
Position, prepare for the warrior. Cause a long time we've been ready. We've been ready. The opposition can't prepare for the warrior. Cause a long time we've been ready. We've been ready. Born in the warrior. I defeat the fam. You can keep the fame. Feeling like my dreams and nightmares are one and the same. The price we pay to make it. Is it worth the strain? Writing life as I see it through my window panes. Hustled out the streets. Now we eating well. Animosity is coming. They wanted us to fail. Hate to disappoint. I'ma give them hell. Battle anybody, I don't care who you kill. I excel, they all fail. Got 5 on it with my loonies, put it in the air. My ambition should be higher. Watch me as I levitate, no matter what you do. Eyes on the racks, don't forget the stakes. Type to stand with your spit, venom in your face. Live by any means in the race. But it's petty shit I don't even wanna chase. Cause I'm living out my dreams. While you popping off, you ain't sacrifice a thing. Teamwork and perseverance, bringing home the rain. Feeling like LeBron, you should label me a king. Duck tick for that lady if she ever try to sing. Yeah. Duck tick for that lady if she ever try to sing. Yeah. The opposition can't prepare for the warrior. Cause a long time we've been ready. We've been ready. The opposition can't prepare for the warrior. Cause a long time we've been ready. We've been ready. Born in the warrior.